I asked myself again and again and again if I was going to do this. It's 2024, and we live in a world, folks, that if you tell the truth, something the media doesn't do anymore, something a lot of the politicians don't do anymore. In fact, I'm just going to state it. Would you like me to name groups of people that tell the most lies, believe the most lies? Atheists and evolutionists, Democrats, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, Black people in America, not all, but the majority of them, and feminists. That would include Caucasian women. So before anybody, and I'm sure I'll get cries of racism and you ignorant and yada, yada, yada. That's fine. When you're losing the battle for having a truthful comeback, you call people names and you call them racist. That's become the modus operandi of the black left in America. 13% of the United States population. And if you were not from America and you were just to come here and just read the news, you would get the feeling there's only two groups of people in this country, white and black. And just reading the headlines and watching the way the news spins everything, you get the feeling that whites are just bad, terrible people that have really pissed off the black community. You would not hear about the Asians. You would not hear about the Mexicans, the Hmong, and all the other people from around the world that come to move here. Before we get started, I have friends in Zambia, Kenya, Nigeria. They are not to be confused with African Americans. Not at all. Many of them know 3 languages, dress very cool in their traditional wear. They own homes, they have jobs. They're quality people. Before I get going, I need to put my disclaimer in. Augusta, Georgia. I have friends that are blacks. I respect them. I value them. We eat together. We hug. We dance. Shoot pool with them. And I say this because people will make the call that I'm racist based on what I'm about to say. It's a stupid, polarized society. Unwritten rule out there is white people do not have a right to talk about anything the blacks do, anything they say, and anything that I do say will be met with this. You're not black, you don't understand. That's an argument that goes in the shredder bin in less than 0.001 of a second. Number one, you're implying that because you're a person of color, you're automatically smarter than me or anybody else, and no one else can comment on your race. That's a farce. Because your own race comments on mine daily. You make utterly false statements. You make blanket, broad brush statements. And this white boy is going to systematically bring this up. I do not drive school bus, but I had moved out here to drive a school bus. And I love kids. The kids out here are the worst of 4 states. I drove in 4, but out of the other 3 states, the worst routes I had in, say, Spokane, Duluth, Denver, various places in Minnesota, various places in Washington State. I did not have the behavior that I've seen in Augusta. The disrespect, the vandalism of the buses, the refusal for even high school kids to sit down, follow directives. Racist comments made to me on a regular basis. And I have the freedom of speech to talk about this. because I do my job with pride. I treat everybody the same. There are kids to this day, high school girls, when I go into area stores that are now working, that graduated, they say, hey, some hug me, but they always get my attention. And that means something to me because when I first started driving here, I thought, man, they all hate me down here. Augusta, I moved here because the cost of houses were a lot cheaper than in Denver, Colorado. The house I bought was owned by a rental company, and all of the mail that I get here, and knowing somebody personally that knows who lived here, it is amazing that what I've seen with mine own eyes, then they don't lie. There's a lot of folks down here that don't take care of stuff. They'll spend more on a car and a stereo and rims, and the house looks like a bomb went off. Cockroaches, mice, bugs, rats. State of disrepair, tarps over the roof. We got blight all over Augusta. Lots of blight. And I moved to Apple Valley, and I'm going to talk about this because this is going to highlight why a lot of people do not move. Michelle Obama said she didn't understand why white people weren't moving into black neighborhoods, and I felt like saying, are you stupid? That's a whole nother story. I'm not an Obama fan. I never was. It was not leadership material. And people like to argue there was no controversy, there was no scandal. No, not at all. Not at all. He lied to the American people about Affordable Care Act. Something like 20 million people out of 330 million Americans profited from Obamacare. The rest of us got, well, kicked in the groin on that one. HMO costs went up. You pay more for your health premiums and you get less in return. You got to pay all this deductible into it before anything kicks in. And then it's 50, 20, 80, 20, 90, 1,000, whatever. I'm being facetious, but he wrecked it. Companies that used to give good health benefits stopped doing that. But Michelle Obama's an interesting woman. I don't have respect for her. I don't need to. Listening to black people comment that she was the prettiest, best looking first lady, well, that's a subjective opinion. And I'm not saying this because Jackie Kennedy was white, but Jackie Kennedy was probably the prettiest first lady ever, with dignity, grace, and poise. There is nobody that can hold a candle but Jacqueline Kennedy. Nobody. And I'm not a Democrat supporter. I'm going to say that right now. But Jackie Kennedy carried herself with a distinguished sense of class. Michelle Obama offends me. She's offended many white people by saying whites are privileged. This coming from a woman who's married to a husband who bought a big mansion on Martha's Vineyard. Now, Martha's Vineyard, there was a time when black people could not own property at all in certain parts of the country, but especially Martha's Vineyard. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just stating facts. Not only are blacks unlimited in what they can do, they have the same rights and freedoms that I and anybody else have. And they want to sit there and talk about privilege and critical race theory taught by a woman from the New York Times. The New York Times is toilet paper as far as I'm concerned, liberal leaning all the way. That is not journalism, folks. That's not journalism. That is slanted BS. And no school should be teaching that. Whites are supposed to feel bad. Whites are supposed to apologize. See, I was born in 1966. I'm supposed to apologize for what? I was adopted at 4 months of age. My mother had me out of wedlock. Don't know my mom and dad, just know a little bit of history that the adoption agency wrote a letter to my folks, and I have a copy of that. But the mother who adopted me was abusive. She didn't know how to deal with boys. I was high energy. She couldn't handle that. I wasn't the perfect kid, but I didn't smoke, drink, or do drugs and do Ponzi schemes or murder anybody. I was a typical hyper spastic kid, and I grew up. And wouldn't you know that I would get into the very thing I never thought I'd get into, managing students when I was, somewhat unmanageable. I'm talking about this on the 4th of July for a reason. And we're going to bring all these loose ends together, which is classic Pacific. I don't celebrate Juneteenth, don't need to. Not my holiday. I was thankful for the day off, just like any other holiday. We all need our rest. But it's just a slap in the face. I don't celebrate the 4th. That's not my independence. Childish t-shirts. Black History Month. I am Black History, say shirts. Black History is not a month. The knee-jerk toddler reaction, nanny boo-boo, stick your head in doo-doo, back and forth. But how about it's a black thing you wouldn't understand. I'm black and I'm proud. Sported in my workplace. I would never wear a shirt that says I'm white and proud. One, because that's not my style. I have no problem saying proud to be Irish. But I have thought, and I've entertained the idea, why don't I get a shirt made up? Born white, proud of it. On the back, no apologies needed. You think that some of the black folks would have a problem with that? Of course they would. How about this one? Every time a white person says the N-word, well, racism, cities get burned, somebody's going to get hurt. I live in a city where the blacks and the students call each other the N-word constantly. Constantly. And those same people are talking about how racist whites are. When I was driving the bus, I would ask students, can I ask why you're using that word? You were set free from slavery. You were set free from being branded a racial epithet. Yes, I have said this to students. And you guys are calling each other that. And if a white guy says it, you're ready to throw down. Yes, I've said that on a public school bus. Well, yeah, if a white guy says it's racist, why would you use the word? And I'm going to say what I've said to the black community. If you don't like the N-word, stop using it and stop singing it in your crappy crap music. And yes, I made a statement. Rap music today is garbage. Cardi B is garbage. And we're going to get into that. People that listen to that kind of music are not quality folks. Okay. Watch how angry they get when their music is criticized. Watch how they'll call me racist. The names that I was called. Augusta has something called the jail report. It's kind of humorous, but at the same time, it's sad. Somebody thought it was a good idea to parade all of the lawless scofflaws and put them on blast. It's kind of like when I lived in Duluth, Minnesota, they had something called Matter of Record. I remember I had a kid run my stop sign, almost mowed down two private schoolgirls that our company was contracted to drive for a Catholic school in Duluth. And I got his plate, turned it in, and he and his mother wanted to fight this. So I had to go to the Duluth courthouse, St. Louis County, Minnesota. And the kid come, and the mother of the two daughters said, "Are you going to court on this?" I said, "Absolutely." She goes, "Would you have a problem if I bring my daughters? I want them to learn about the justice system." I said, "Absolutely." And I sat in there. He was a white boy. I remember very clearly, there were snowbanks, there was snow on the ground. Good old Duluth is the Polar Express. And he came and he went right in between the kids as they were starting to cross the street. I honked. He had one of those Horizons. It was a takeoff of the VW Rabbit. In the courtroom, this kid ran his mouth at the judge. When I gave testimony, he sneered at me, and I thought, you little punk, I'm gonna break you in half. Of course, I didn't say that. How long was I supposed to wait? Judge says until he pulls in the stop sign. I said, I saw you coming, but the two girls were already there and starting to cross. I'm not going to turn off my 8-ways to let you go through because you're in a hurry. You could have gone straight down the road instead of turning. You saw my bus before you turned that corner. You could have gone straight, but you chose to take a right turn because he was going down to Superior Street to get to his high school. He decided he was going to just play, I don't care. I got the plate. I got done with the route, drove to East High School, walked in the office and said, hey, I noticed you got to have parking permits for your students. You got the plate, the car on this? He goes, yes, I do. I said, yeah, I just ran my stop sign. I told him everything. He says, you know what? I think we got a Duluth police officer here today. Let me get him in there and let me call the kid out of class. Called the kid out of class. Kid came out. And he had an irritated look on his face. The reason I brought you in here is you ran this gentleman's school bus stop sign. The guy turns around and glares at me. He says, yeah, so? I said, you almost hit two girls, young man. And the guy started to run his mouth, and the principal says, hold it. You're in the wrong, buddy. And the cop issued him a ticket right there. I handed him my little thing, gave him the time, everything. They weren't playing. The judge took his license for 6 months. My dispatcher and supervisor went to the courtroom with me. And after we got in the truck, after we were done with court, he said, that was funny. That guy wanted to run his mouth and dug himself a grave. 6 months before he had ran my stop sign, he went by Lakeside Elementary. They used students as crossing guards, and they were coming to stop traffic. And he literally caused them to jump out of the way. He wasn't stopping. He was going to run those girls down. He got caught for that. Judge says, you got a problem. You're impatient, and you don't want to follow the rules. His mother was a typical, spoil the kid thing. You can't take his license. He works at IGA. IGA was 3 blocks from the house, straight down the avenue he should have gone down instead of getting the ticket with me. I thought, wow, this is unbelievable. We're raising a generation of wussies. And guess what? It's even gotten worse in the Black community. Okay. But in the matter of record, my dispatcher came up to me about, 2 years later, and he said, check this out, man. Saw the name, ran a stop sign in a 20 or 30 mile an hour zone at 80 miles an hour. I said, man, this kid doesn't get it. He was an adult now. He just shook his head. He said, yeah, I just remember his behavior in the courtroom, and you just thought, he ain't going to get it. I said, they need to take away his license and his car. The guy's a loaded weapon. So back to Augusta. I don't drive school bus anymore. I had some changes hit me. I had gotten COVID, and I got vertigo. It's one of the long hauler symptoms where the head spins and you're vomiting. And it happened about a year later. And there are triggers that set it off. I always have a little bit of wooziness, but I made the decision. No one did this. I said, I need to get off of this. I can't do this. I'm not going to have dizziness and be sick with kids on the bus. I'm not doing this. And I stepped down and stepped out of it. My stress after doing that went from this much to this much. I'd have to cover double routes. You got high school kids walking up and down the aisle, get up out of their seat to punch somebody in the face. Middle school kids. Excuse me, I got some tickle in the throat. What I'm about to say is my observation and, yes, my opinion. I grew up in Los Angeles. I grew up in the era of the Watts riots, Cal Berkeley, all the crazy stuff that happened in the good old 60s. I've seen pictures of Watts burned out, tore up when the blacks tore it to pieces. I remember as a kid, we went very near some of the burned out areas, and I asked my dad what happened. I don't even remember what he told me. My dad never referred to black people with the N word. He never said derogatory things about blacks, the family that adopted me. I didn't grow up using the N word. I grew up in Los Angeles and I walked to school with all kinds of kids. I walked home from school with a black kid one day with an afro, and we were just talking about stuff. I didn't grow up with a racial hatred. As I got older and I moved about the nation and I got out there, I started to realize, well, there's a problem out here. Lived in Duluth, Minnesota. And the few blacks that we had living up there, I had moved into an apartment in an old 1890s building since torn down. I was shocked to see the other day it's gone. The old steam radiators, wood floors, clawfoot tubs, pretty cool place. And I'd walk down 2 blocks to go to the 6th Avenue IGA, and a black family moved in, and this black guy would come out and stand on the sidewalk. I'd move around him and he'd move over and block. And I said, hey, man, what's the problem here? He wanted a confrontation. Duluth is a town of 89,000 people. And I checked, I think the black populace is either 1 or 2% now at 2024. Another time, right across the street, diagonal, there was a second floor apartment. There was a black lady laying out on the deck on a summer day. And I drove the bus up there and I parked the bus and I walked out and this kid's yelling, hey, honky, hey, why honky, hey. I said, you racist? You got racism, young man? Mom just laid up there like this. Didn't address him. Didn't say, hey, young man, you don't talk to people like that. And it didn't take me long to see that as I moved on from there, I lived in Akron, Ohio, ran a troubled youth home. I lived on a street with mostly white, elderly women who were widows. Their husbands had died. They bought the house in the 50s. Very nice, genteel, sweet old ladies. The street behind us was Akron Metro housing, the bulk majority being African American. The noise and the crazy stuff that went on back there. There were bullet holes in the siding in the back of our house before we had actually taken on the job. The rap music and the was deafening. I'd be down in the full basement downstairs and things were vibrating. I said, man, I'm getting tired of this. I climbed up a step ladder, peeked over my back fence. Guy had one of those little S10 Blazers, shaved head, tough guy. Said, hey, can you turn that stuff down, man? That's too much. He walked toward that fence, looked like a pit bull. Fuck you, white boy. I was married at the time, and I told my wife, I said, you know what? I don't know what we got ourselves into with his job, but that neighborhood over there, not good. I found out who headed up the Akron Metro housing, and I called the guy and talked to him. I found out who our city council guy was, and I called and talked to him. I went to one of the city council meetings, and I started getting license plates. Let me tell you that this white boy, I don't have no power. I'm no threat to nobody. But there was drug dealing going on. There were 3 Akron Metro houses at the end of our street at the cul-de-sac, and people rocket down there, blacks, hand off the baggie and tear out of there. One day, I was out in the yard doing something, and somebody screamed down there, and I said, "Hey, slow down!" Guy slammed it in reverse. "What'd you say?" I said, "Slow down. There's children in this house. You're going too fast." He backed up. I never expected it. He says, "Man, I'm all right. I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry." I said, "Thank you, man. Appreciate it." There's an old man who lived at the end of the street. Black teens would cut through his yard and spray paint black graffiti down the side of his clapboard house. Cutting through his yard, jump over his fence. One day I said, "Hey, quit walking through that man's yard. Fuck you, man." My then wife said, "I don't ever want to live around these folks." I said, "Not me either." We hightailed it. We did 6 months down there. We left. Not because of that. There were other things. The agency wasn't paying enough. It was bad. We had black kids in our home 2 days. We had one kid kept coming. Those black kids grew to love us. They told us stories about what they were growing up in, raised by auntie. We had a little boy, can't reveal names, but a little boy, and he'd wake up in the middle of the night just shrieking. We slept with our bedroom door open. I'd come in, I said, "Dude, what's wrong?" "Chucky gonna get me." I'm like, "Who's Chucky?" Chucky, the doll. I said, "Why are you watching that?" "My auntie made me do it. She wants me to watch my brothers and sisters." I said, "You like that stuff?" I notice a lot of black women love horror. I mean, stabbing and blood flowing. And I dated a few black women, and they like that stuff. And I'm like, I don't understand why anybody likes that stuff. I had to take that little boy to his football practice. And that was the first time I got exposed to real hood culture. Had a little Mercury Topaz, and as we were driving through the neighborhood, they were all sitting out on the porches of these old brick buildings, homes, and they did not look friendly. Drove to the practice. I walked over to the black coach. I said, "Hey, my name's Michael, and we got him for a few days." And how long's practice? "Oh, you can just wait if you want. It's only going to be like 45 minutes. I said, "All right." Parked off. A group of youth came over and started throwing rocks at the car. I was sitting in the car. I got out and I said, "Hey, don't be throwing rocks at the car, please." "What you going to do about it, Whitey?" I said, "I ain't even doing anything to you. I'm here to pick up one of those kids when they're done. Could you leave my car alone, please?" They ran their mouth. When I picked up the kid, he got in and kids are going, "Man, what you doing with him? What, who's he?" I told the little boy what happened. He says, "Man, you got to be careful because they don't like white people down here." I said, "I see that." Augusta, I was living in Apple Valley. I'd rented from a black lady friend of mine. She had retired from Denver school. She had bought a house in Apple Valley. She called me to tell me how cheap properties were. I didn't do any research on this place. I'd heard about it. I had a Philippine friend try to welcome me out here in 2008. At that time, I thought, I don't see me living in Georgia. But when you get older and you want to settle in and have a house in Denver, you're looking at a mortgage that's about $3,500 a month. I thought, no, I'm not doing that. Can't afford it. Lived in her place or rented a back room in her house for 3 months. And the guy next door seemed okay. Kind of an alcoholic. Didn't take pride in the property, got the house for chump change and didn't really maintain it. And one day, 3 pit bulls show up in the backyard, and my room is 4 feet from the fence, a chain link fence, and those dogs are all night. I'm like, oh my gosh. I went and knocked. Said, hey, can we? Oh no, I'm not doing anything with that dog. That's my nephew, man. That's him. Tall guy with dreadlocks. I get done with my first shift at my job back in 2019, and I heard him. I was in the backyard talking to my friend, and I said, I'll be right back. I said, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? He turns around and screams, what? I said, can we do something about these dogs? My room's right there. They're keeping me awake at night. It wasn't a problem. Now they're here. The guy yelled and cussed. Why don't you get your fucking earplugs? I said, man, I just asked, is there something we can do? And he threatened me. I said, you're going to threaten me. I came and talked to you reasonably, and you're threatening me. He said, you don't even fucking own that house. I said, neither do you. That's your uncle's. That's none of your fucking business. I said, well, it's none of your business here. I pay rent, and I'm just asking if we can do something. That's all. I'm no threat to you, bud. You better shut the fuck up, or I'll take that chain and choke the shit out of you and kill your fucking ass. I said, you're going to threaten me and not even talk reasonably. Okay. I turned around and walked away. The Bible says a soft answer turns away wrath. I did go to work, and there was a gentleman who worked, and he saw something was wrong. He said, what's wrong? And he's a black guy, and I told him what happened. He said, man, if I was over there, I would have come up and said, you touch him. I said, you would have done that? He goes, I know you, man. You did nothing wrong in going to him. Nothing. You handled yourself right. He said, I don't got that racist crap in me, Mike. You're pretty cool. You're a good worker, and people like you. There's a lot of people here that don't. And they're usually the ones that got racism coursing through their veins. They're usually the ones that love to break all the rules and do whatever they want. The jail report. I would leave comments like everybody else did. And it's amazing that I'd say something. A white woman was busted, something to do with a dental college. She was embezzling funds, and they didn't do much to her. For what she did, she should have been thrown in the pokey for a long dang time. But she sold her house, made an agreement to start paying the money back. I'm like, okay. Black after black. White privilege. Oh, yeah, if we'd have done that. And I wrote a comment. I said, you look at this jail report, and I see blacks in here all day long for murder, 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 murder. Percentile-wise, more of you are killing more of you than anybody else in this city. Some big, heavy black woman made some comment calling me Shaggy. They don't pay attention to detail. I've looked at pictures of Shaggy, and I don't look like Shaggy. Shaggy didn't wear glasses. Shaggy had a very long oval face and a little bit of stubbly coming out of here. And I got upset. I wrote back and I said, well, at least I don't have to get on a weight management program. At least I don't wear a wig. And the longer I live here, I find myself getting jaded, calloused, and learning to fling it right back. In other words, not fear these people. Because they have a commanding sense of fear over a lot of whites. It is my observation that white people are more afraid of them than they are of white people. And they know that. And Augusta has a lot of murders. I lived in Spokane. Spokane was 213,000. This place is 197,000. A lot more murders going on right here than old Spokane. And most of the murders here, the lion's share majority of them are black on black violence. And one thing I've noticed with the African American female community that spread their legs, was schmoozed and hustled by a guy. And I'm going to talk about that because out of all the races, It's my observation that black males chomp on their women more than any other race or ethnic of males. They hump them and leave them. Kid grows up without a dad. You got a young black woman who doesn't have the tools to be a proper parent, twerking to Cardi B, wet ASS, PUSSY, good quality stuff there to raise your children to, by the way. And if I make comments about their music, I'm dubbed racist. Or they comment on my looks, my hair. One woman the other day said, it's not the 80s anymore. I said, what does that have to do with the content that we're discussing here? Oh, that's right. You don't have any facts to come back with. I gotcha. So you resort to name calling. And all the blacks that said white privilege because this white lady got slapped on the wrist, I didn't defend her. I thought she should have been thrown in the clink for that. Blacks find one thing, they pounce on it. But you go to them and hold the full view, full length mirror in front of their face and show them what they're doing. They don't want to talk about it. They want to talk about the cops and police brutality. They never want to talk about black brutality to police when police are following protocol and doing exactly what they're supposed to do and are shot and killed and beat up by blacks. I'd like to see those numbers roll in on a nationwide level. I'd like to talk about Baltimore, South Augusta. I'd like to talk about the bad neighborhoods of Atlanta. I'd like to talk about Detroit, Compton. I'm familiar with all of them except Baltimore. I haven't been there. I've rolled right through Compton. And why is there so many problems? Why is there so much violence and blight and graffiti and busted, shattered lives? Is that all the white man's fault? Of course it isn't. Blacks like to say that whites stole the land from the natives. And to them, I say, did you sign the title of your house to a Native American? What you talking about? Did you sign your car title and your title to a Native American? No, man. I said, then shut up. You're stealing the land too then, aren't you? You own a house on land that's stolen. So if you're going to accuse us of the crime, you're involved in it. You see, you don't have to have a political science degree. You just got to have basic common sense and critical thinking skills, which a lot of people don't, especially the ones that are hurling all the insults at our race. But yes, I said that. And what bothers me in Augusta is this disrespect on the roads, going 80 miles an hour to 45 zone, running red lights, lots of red light violations. And I look, and guess what color it is? I was at a light the other day. It was red. I'm looking to my left. I was going to make a right turn after stop. There was traffic, and the semi started to move slowly forward. And I'm like, well, I got to wait. The light changed. I didn't know it. And the person behind me could have just went bump, bump. But they held the horn down. And yes, I'd had enough. I'm in my own neighborhood, and I went, they saw it. I turned right. They turned right, get in that left lane, get up next to me, and both the black people are like this. And I went, they looked at me for a minute. I drove off. They got behind me. I turned into my neighborhood. I thought, if those sons of bitches come up and follow me into my driveway, I'm going to jump out of the truck and say, how may I help you? You got a problem? I'm glad I've lived here because I'm less afraid. And the one thing I tell everybody, nobody needs to fear when you're standing on the truth. I don't care how intimidating that race and all the lies they say about it. So, oh, you didn't go there. Yeah, you weren't slaves. I'm Irish. Do your damn research. Irish were slaves. They paid less for an Irish male slave than they did for a black slave in the United States. Where's my Irish teeth? Where is it? Martin Luther King. On Martin Luther King one day, I did a video reading the entire contents of I have a dream. I've never done it in my life. Most black kids that I've seen today, not even familiar with all of it. But he said something interesting that is lost upon most of the black people in American culture today. That a man be not judged by the color of his skin, but by the content of his character. I've struggled with that all my life. The chain, the shirt off the shoulder, my hair. They never judge the content of my character. They judge all the externals. Black people judge this right here. Oh, he a white guy. That is so ignorant. I'm going to say something, and this is my observation. If America were allowed, if things were to turn where the blacks were in total power of this country would go down the toilet so fast. It was white people that ended slavery, not black people. I got a picture in my living room of a lot of black African female art. I got one watercolor painting, Harriet Tubman running an ox cart across the river to free the slaves. I wish I could go back and meet Harriet Tubman because I have respect for her. I have respect for black people that are intellectual, that don't hold a racist chip on their shoulder. I moved to the South here and I see a lot of laziness. I moved to the South here and I see a lot of people of color getting away with things in the workplace that I never would have gotten away with and I wouldn't do in any workplace I've worked. The tables have turned with 2020 and the whole George Floyd fiasco debacle. And no, he was not killed by Chauvin's knee in the back. The original coroner report said he was loaded up on fentanyl. He had COVID running through his system. And he had heart problems. The family didn't want to hear that, so they got a second coroner to say what they wanted to hear. And the Bible talks about that. That a time would come when men who have itching ears would heap themselves teachers hearing what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. I lived in Hong Kong. I lived in Asia for a year. And when you live in any culture that's not your own, there's things that you don't like. The Chinese would push, they'd cut in line, they'd whap into your shoulder. There's an adjustment. The beautiful thing was, I left and came back to the United States after a year, but I'm glad I experienced Asia. I'd like to go to Zambia or Kenya and live there a year. There's some beautiful black ladies. One is a friend of mine on social media. I don't have a hang up with black. There's black women I think are absolutely beautiful. I would marry and date a black. I've dated actually a few blacks in my life. They didn't work out for various reasons. I listen to what black people say about my race, and they keep going into their race and dating their men who cheat and play and cheat and play. I saw Fences. That movie, I'm a guy. I wear my emotions a little bit on my sleeve, and I cried because the story's playing out. The guy has this beautiful black woman wife, presses his uniforms for the trash truck job that he had, fixes him beautiful meals, loving, beautiful black woman. And then he comes to her and tells her he's been fooling around and got her pregnant. And I started crying. Like, oh my gosh, I'd love to have a wife like that woman. I know people right here, black, that are married to a beautiful wife and they're playing around with a dozen women and take pictures of them shirtless. And I'm not going to get into people's taste because that's not appropriate with what this video is about. But I'm just like, really? You got this beautiful wife from Jamaica and you're fooling around with these Oh my gosh, you really dig in the dumpster. Okay. I've been judged by my looks all my life. I'm almost 60 and I'm better looking than most of the people I see around Augusta. And I got way less hair under here than most of the women I see, as well as way less the smell. I'm a grown man. I don't do stink. And I'm not dating a woman who stink. And I'm not dating a woman who's got more hair under her arms than I do. I don't like all this clothing because it's hot in the South. So yeah, I shave. And I'm judged by low class, GHETTO type of people. And there's blacks that I work with that I respect. I told a guy, I said, if I owned a company, I'd hire you in a minute. There's quality black people that I know. I'm going to say it. Most of them are the older generation that don't have the chip on their shoulder. And there's some in the older generation that got one. My roommate and I were at Walmart on one side of town, and a black one pulled right in front of our truck. You know, where you pulled into a parking spot. We weren't near the store. I don't play that game. I park away from the store. Shopping carts, people backing up, traffic. She was, my gosh, we were good 400 or 500 feet from the store. There was a car in front of her, but there was 20 feet of space between her front bumper and the bumper of the car in front of her. We started up the truck. She saw me. And I backed up a little bit so I could kind of angle around her. And I saw I had no room because nobody's in parking space next to me. She saw me, wouldn't move. And I kind of tapped the horn and I pointed, I motioned that I was going to go out. And she did this. You ever notice that? A lot of African American women, they just hit 0 to 60 with complete crazy behavior. Grown women. Out of all the cultures I've been around, grown women that even at 50, 60 want to throw down and fight. It's in there. I dated a black woman in Denver, and she told me, my mother told me, if some other girl bothering you and you don't kick her butt, I'm going to kick your butt. I said, so that's what you're taught? The ladylike factor in black culture is just about non-existent. Those were gone days. Very rare to meet a lady. Feminine, lady, sweet. But let's talk about black males. Working with a lot of black youth, I've noticed a common denominator raised by a mom, usually a ratchet one, running the mouth, didn't grow up in the proper development stages, got knocked up, had a kid, dad the hustler, schmoozed her and said, well, yeah, I got to go now. Go get his ride with his rims and play his urban terrorism in the neighborhood and shake every house. And anybody like me tries to say, hey, you're disturbing me, you could get shot. And then finally I connected and said, what was the problem with these guys? They're raised by a woman. And that woman is usually emotionally driven thinking. And they don't have the balance of a man who says, hey, son, you don't need to fight everybody because they disagree with you. Learn to agree and disagree and walk on. But they see the mother, you do that one more time, I'm going to tear up your behind. I mean, little dumb stuff. I go to a lot of places. I see these women just undressing their kid verbally, cussing, screaming at him for a tiny infraction. But when those same kids are acting up out there in society, they want an accounting of the driver, the teacher, the cops. They don't look at what they're guilty of. And that's what bothers me. They scream racism, real or imagined, by police. They're asked to cooperate. Need you to put your hands up where I can see them. They're given a clear directive, but they've got to just, nope, I've got to submit. It's a cop, buddy. Do what you say, you get a ticket, and you move on. Now you got to turn it into a complete drama, and you end up getting shot. Michael, what's his name? Ferguson, Missouri, a big black boy. And I love hearing the black ones say, my baby, my baby. He's running around being a thug, knocked up a convenience store, stole cigars or something, roughed up the clerk, and marches out of there like, hey, Sirras, walking down the middle of the street. Officer Wilson, I don't even believe he knew that was the suspect. He's going and he says, I need you to get out of the street, please. And the guy bum rushes his door trying to grab his gun. Yeah, Officer Wilson went, and one of the brothers or family members said, we're gonna watch Ferguson burn. You know, I don't get my way most of the time, and I've never thought about setting a city on fire. A jury found Officer Wilson not guilty, which also consisted of blacks. But because the blacks didn't want to hear that, and you watch what happens when there's a riot. Women stealing. I remember in Minneapolis over Floyd, you see two black teen girls, pom-poms in their hair, cruising out of Target. Everything's been busted up and in a shambles. They walk out carrying one of those red baskets. They cleaned out the makeup aisle and they're stepping over broken glass real gingerly and ladylike. And I said, isn't that nice? They just walk in there and help themselves. And if you listen to some of the black politicians, they said that's reparations. Tearing up a store that had nothing to do with the cops and George Floyd. Burning down churches, flipping over police cars in cities all around the nation that had nothing to do with George Floyd. Makes sense to me. From Portland to New York. And a black man was complaining in Atlanta he lost some business when Trump had a rally the other day, and he was very offended by it. And I wrote a comment. I said, you lost some business because there was a crowd of people at a Trump rally. Did you care about all the people that lost their businesses because your people rioted and tore everything up? No, you didn't. So please be quiet. And back to the black people and your N-word. You've got no right to get angry at a white guy for using it. Number one, we have the same freedom of speech that you claim to have when you say all kinds of racist statements against us. And what kind of an example do you set for your children with your crappy music, garbage music with Mother F, Mother F. Great stuff, man. I love black music, not that stuff. I like Motown. Lou Rawls, Marvin Gaye, Gap Band, SOS Band, Barry White, Diana Ross, the Supremes. Man, good stuff. They ain't making it now at all. It's garbage. It's urban terrorism. And I've told people what you listen to is going to determine your elevation. Somebody comes down and says, you know, can you turn that down? That's too loud and it's disturbing me. Watch their sweet, intellectual, mature reaction to that. You could be in danger for asking them. So you're not allowed to say anything to them. You're not allowed to hold them accountable. They can be bullies. They can do what they want. They can shake the whole neighborhood. Doesn't matter if older black people don't want to hear it. You're going to do whatever the hell you want. 13% of the population in America, because of the media in 2020 and the lies from the Democratic Party, are wagging the fucking dog. And you parade your clowns out there. Oprah Winfrey, a billionaire. Do you know how she made her money? It wasn't running a black barbershop. It wasn't running a black soul food restaurant. It was for her setting herself up as some great pontificator on everything. And most of that money came flowing in from white housewives. And then she coolly says whites are privileged. So are you. You bought a mansion in Montecito, California. That's upper end, man. And that mansion was $90 million. and you own 8 others, Aspen and high dollar places. How many mansions do you need, lady? And you can tell Oprah gets plenty to eat. Let's go after Whoopi Goldberg. She was great in Sister Act. She should have stuck to her day job. She's horrible on The View. She's as big as a house. Racist as all get out. Joy Behar, another racist. And you notice the common denominator with all of these women? They're not pretty. And I say this because blacks have judged me, made fun of me, laughed at me on the streets. I was at the flea market one day and a rather large husband and wife were walking with their plump, chubby children behind them, all black. They turned around, I'm walking, and they looked and the look. This white boy was taught by my mother. If I'd have done that, my mother would have paddled our butts for that. You don't do that. I was in a restaurant, Mammoth Lakes, California. My favorite restaurant, Captain's Table, was a seafood restaurant. And my sister liked Joan Jett and the Black Hearts. It has nothing to do with black. Joan Jett was white, and she was cutting edge rebel woman rock music. I didn't like her, and I always gave her a hard time about it. And I didn't make any connection because I didn't have that racial crap in me. And I looked at her and she was talking about Joan Jett. I said, Joan Jett, the black dummies, meaning black hearts, black dummies. I said, your band is stupid, man. And we were like Tom and Jerry with each other. And my mother leaned over and said, Michael, we have a black waiter. He's very nice. And I don't know what you're saying. I said, Mom, I'm sorry. I wasn't talking about him. I was talking about her band. But he may hear that. And I felt bad because he was a nice man. And I did not want him to think that I was directing something at him. You know who causes the racial problems in this country? Not us. I think most people that I know, most people are live and let live, except the Democrats. They want to butt in and control us. And what bothers me is that I'm not a threat to the black community, but my life could be in danger. I had problems with a neighbor. No insurance on the house. Daughter cooked something on the stove, walked away, went to sleep, and burned the house. Woman moved into a travel trailer with tarps all over it, mold down the side. But before that, there were 3 dogs on the property, jumping the fence, 1 a pit bull, 2 red dogs, jumping the fence, running into my yard, dragging trash, shitting in my yard. Every time I mow my lawn, I stepped in piles of crap because I couldn't see it. And barking. 3 years I went through this. I called animal control. They couldn't reach anybody over there. You had to find out who owned the house and serve some complaints. And I finally said, you know what? I'm going to have to go to court. But the son, I don't know his age, big strapping black guy. When I had bought my house, nobody was living over there. Then I see this car show up. Took the muffler out. Sounds like a dang rice rocket on steroids, fart car. Suzuki motorcycle on blast. Tear out of the driveway, tear in. Tear out of the driveway every 5 minutes. But I'm sure he's drug dealing. Oh, looks like, sounds like. I wish I could walk over and say, hey, dude, no offense, but I live across the street. We haven't met, but you're waking me up. You're disturbing me. Could you cool it a little bit? See, I grew up in an era where you could do that. You cannot do that with African-American people in the United States. And more, you can't do it with whites because everybody's got an attitude today. But blacks can be dead wrong, and you try to do the right thing and go talk to them, you could get shot, threatened, beat up. So I did what I could do, called the sheriff. Sheriff went over there many times, told him to knock it off. This went on for over a year. The only way it stopped is when I knew somebody in my job who used to work for the county sheriff. a black lady who her husband was a minister, and she liked me. She was a very nice lady, and I told her about this problem. She goes, "I know the captains. Let me see what I can do." A week after she made a couple calls down there, I said, "See if you can call the homeowner." I had a black neighbor, his wife, and three little girls. I'd back my truck, and every day after work, the three little girls would be standing out there waving. Even one a year old in diapers would be going like this. And I'd find stuff that they were throwing out of my job, old furniture that was perfectly good. I'd bring it for them. If I had extra food from when we did food runs for the COVID lockdown, I'd bring it to them. I didn't have a problem with my black neighbors. I got a black neighbor on the other side, 77-year-old man. We talk, we get along. He needs help, I help him. How much you want to charge? Nothing, you're my neighbor. If I need to borrow something from him, he'll lend it to me. I'm the minority down here. And I want to make it very clear, I don't hate blacks. I work with a lot of the black children over the years, and they touch my heart. I love the girls with little braids and beads in their hair, and they go like this and clackety clack. I love their enthusiasm. I like blacks that they're in music and they're energetic and they like to dance and express. But what I don't like is the culture they've surrounded themselves in that's disrespectful, hateful, accusing all of us as racism, and generating music that is circling the drain. And your kids are a danger to you who listen to that. It's called modeling. Kids should not be exposed to certain things. I don't care what color you are. You want to listen to garbage? For the love of God, can you not do it in front of your children? Yeah, I didn't like my dad's music. He liked country, but he never played stuff singing about wet ASSPUSSY. My mom and dad didn't listen to or watch stuff that would encourage me to be violent. And you got a lot of black boys growing up that never become men. They're dangerous because they're operating off emotion and not reason. Men are supposed to, I'm sorry, it takes a man and a woman to raise a kid. When you have the balance shift of a woman raising the kid and daddy's not there, there's a major missing element. And we see this 75% of the problems within the African American community are of their own making, said Morgan Freeman, a black man. And black males want to posture, peacock, strut, talk tough, shout down, cuss out, intimidate. They never learn to become men. And when you got boys growing up in those kinds of homes, exposed to that kind of stuff, they're going to be a problem to all of us. And I'm tired of living in a city. Oh, we got the first black DA. Who cares? Can he do the job? I remember I had a paint by numbers. There's a dog sitting in a wash bucket. And number 4 was white, number 3 was brown, and number 2 was black and red and blah, blah, blah. And I had it for years hanging on my wall. I was so proud of it. Everybody come in, oh, that's a paint by numbers. I'm like, man, everybody knows it's a paint by numbers. But blacks vote by color. I painted by numbers, but they vote by color. Look at Michael Jackson when he died. He was a musician. That's it. I like a lot of Jackson music. Let me be honest. PYT, Billie Jean, Beat It, Thriller. Jackson had a lot of good music. He had an incredible talent. Everybody loved him in Ben. America loved Jackson. His funeral seemed like it went on for 2 months. The guy was disturbed. He had problems. Trying to color his skin white, screwed up his nose, and sleeping with a 12-year-old boy. And I made a comment about that on a post, and a black woman said, why you be hating? I'm not hating. I'm just bringing it out. You guys want to praise your stars. Take a white man and have him sleep with a 12-year-old black girl and watch what the black community does with that. But see, when Jackson, a black man, sleeps with a 12-year-old white guy, que sera, sera. And blacks think they're airtight in their argument. This dumb white boy, he don't know what he's talking about. Oh, I do. I absolutely do. But the arrogance, the ego with grown black men when it comes to their being racist as all get out. And Augusta doesn't have good leadership. You've got to be kidding me. They vote in the color of skin. And I'm going to say something. William Wilberforce, black people don't even know who he was. A lot of black people don't even know who wrote the song that many black people claiming to be Christians sing in a church or used to sing. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I can see. Do you know who that was written by? A white slave ship captain. He came into contact with William Wilberforce. William Wilberforce was a white guy who petitioned Parliament in Britain to end slavery. And did you know that the Brits ended slavery way before we did? Because of white men. Did you know that it was white people that ended slavery in the U.S.? Did the black people forget it was the North that fought against the South? And black people today just say, oh, whites, they're racist, they're privileged. Northerners did not like the South and the dirty crap they were doing, but they did not support the racism. And might I remind the black community of something you don't want to deal with. This is an ugly stain on your very culture. You vote Democrat, and it was that party that refused to agree to release the slaves. It was that party that created the Jim Crow laws. It was that party that formed the KKK to keep people from voting for the Republican. Then it turned into the racial hate group of the guys with the white hoodies and all that and burning crosses on people's yards. Years ago in Spokane, Washington, they had a lot of skinheads in northern Idaho, the Panhandle of Idaho, like Sandpoint. They had a lot of racial hate groups out there. You don't hear about them much anymore. But in 2020, the media had to tell us there's systemic racism. Was that true? I'd say if you were to take apart the 13% populace of African Americans, I think you would find more racism percentile-wise out of that 13% against us than there is of whatever percentile of white Americans are. I know for a fact that the crime stats are extremely high in black communities all across the nation. I know for a fact that you cannot reason with a black man or woman who believes the shit that they do about us. In fact, you're a fool for trying to have a roundtable discussion. And I don't hate blacks. I don't like a lot of their cultural aspects as far as their Democrat voting. Their kids are in bad shape. Majority. And I want to tell a true story because the black community out here doesn't know who I am. They know me, but they don't know me. Some of them. Denver Public Schools, I was a bus driver out there for 9 years. 2 in the 90s and then 7 before coming out here. We had an in-service and a black man got up at the in-service to talk about, you may not think you're making a difference as bus drivers, but you are. I didn't know who it was. He had a big old afro. And I listened attentively. When we went to lunch break, because it was 7 or 8 hours of in-service, a lady from HR came up to me, Mr. Nelson. I said, yes, ma'am. Did you hear that speaker, the one with the afro? I said, yeah. Do you know who that is? I said, no, ma'am. He rode your bus. And he came to me and he told me, that guy with the red hair and the glasses and the chain, that guy made a difference with me. And I said, he did? She said, yeah, you picked him up at Manual High School. Manual High School was in the drive-by shooting neighborhood. There was a lot of crime down there. I picked him up in the middle of the day to take him to CEC, the Career Education Center in Denver, Colorado, program that I supported. Kids that were not so much academically inclined, but could go for culinary, communication, and they had a lot of skills-based stuff. Very good program. He would talk to me about a program I did called Ballarat. He would talk to me about, driving the bus. And I talked to him the way I talk to everybody. I talked to him like he was a grown man. And he told this lady, that man treated me like I had value. Most adults treat us kids like we're just kids, but he didn't do that. He said hi, he talked, he answered my questions. I really liked riding on his bus. After she was done, I walked away and I had a moment. I said, sometimes you just don't feel like you're making a difference. And thank God. You don't know who's watching. You don't know that drive, that one day you're driving, that one kid who's reaching out to you. I had no idea. I agree with Obama on one thing. Be the change you want to see in the world. As a white guy, I want to be the change I want to see in the world. Working on my house when other people aren't doing anything and they drive by and they go, man, look at that guy work his butt off. By myself. I like to transform ugliness into beauty. I wish I had the money, the means, and the resource to come into these neighborhoods and say, look, it's time to clean it up. It's time to change. But I get so tired of the local yokel blacks making their racist, ignorant, dumb, hateful statements because I comment on the black world. Black guy with dreadlocks arrested for murder the other day. I just put the usual suspect, and here come the comments. Black people, let me ask you a question. You guys feel free to say any old thing you want about us, but we can't say anything. How does that work? You see, the Constitution gives us the freedom of speech too. How come you can say the N-word, but nobody else can? You see, my belief is the N-word is a racial epithet and it's a dirty word and it shouldn't be used by anybody. I don't fling it around. I don't use it in conversation. When I had to write up students for saying it, I had to write the whole word out on the misconduct form. And I didn't like that. Somebody recently posted a comment on YouTube, said the black community is very fragile, and it's finally it clicked. You know what? You're right. I always thought them as tough and intimidating. You know why, don't you? It's like when you have an injured animal and you try to get close to it, it's going to bite you. And that's the way it is with a lot of the blacks. They got that rough exterior because they're wounded. And they want to blame us for everything. Other racist cops, no more than there's racist blacks. Are there blacks who would not hire me because I'm white? Lots of them. Are there blacks that are favored in places I've worked at where there's blacks and they're the majority? Absolutely. By the color of their skin and only for the color of their skin. People doing things like stealing from the company and not getting fired. Shoot, every place I worked as a white guy, if I'd have done that, I would have been fired so fast my head would have spun. But blacks act like we get away with everything. But based on what I'm seeing, who's the privileged ones? The county I live in South Augusta, I don't see the cops being very proactive with all these red light runners and speeders. In fact, all of the black cops haul butt past me all the time when I'm going the posted speed limit. They're not lights and sirens. They're not responding to call, but they're hauling butt. Augusta's a broken place and it could be better. And I want to be a part of putting Augusta on the map in a good way. Go through the neighborhoods, take a drive and look at the blight. the messy yards and the broken cars. And I don't want to pick up a rake and rake. I don't want to clean my house. I was going to clean my room instead of I was going to pick up the broom until I got high. And they bring up the white word all the time around here. And white people have had to be quiet so that they don't offend, try to get along. And I'm not obnoxious. I don't go to work and get up into people's faces. But when I hear them make statements, I turn around and say, I beg your pardon, that's not right. White people need to stand up to this stuff. They need to speak their mind. We don't need to be bullied and intimidated because something that happened 150 years ago, which had nothing to do with me, nothing. Reparations? Are you out of your mind? Let's add up the cash register from, let's see, I came into the world in 66. Civil rights kind of started in 64. Let's add up the cost of damage that blacks have done in riots to cities from one end of the country to the other. Let's add up all the theft. Let's add up all the cops that were slain by them and innocent people were slain by them. And I bet you, plus the cost of the criminal justice system of processing them and jailing them and feeding and clothing and all the stuff related to that, I bet you it far exceeds whatever we would have owed the slaves, because the 13% that exist is about 43 million blacks in America. There were no 43 million slaves. And why are we going to give these young people producing bad music, bad morals, bad manners, disrespect, saying that we're racist, we're going to give them a paycheck? That makes sense. Why? What about us? Us Irish? Should we reparate me? Because somewhere along the line, my Irish relatives were inducted into slavery to build the railroads. Nobody owes me a damn thing. I have a relationship with God and I trust my Father to provide my needs. And I get up and I use my body moving in a direction to go to work and do what I'm supposed to do. But my position is this: don't be intimidated by blacks and their false foul ball calls on everything we say. Don't submit to the argument that you're not black, you couldn't understand. That implication right there is racist all in itself. You're not as smart as me. You're not qualified to talk about this because you're the wrong skin color. Okay, then why do blacks talk about whites all day long? Should I say the same thing to them? You're not white. You don't understand. See, it doesn't work with them. They were emancipated by Abraham Lincoln, and he wasn't black. How many of them packed up and went back to Africa? How many blacks were actually slaves that loved their slave owners and were treated with dignity and respect and got an education? And when the slavery ended, they didn't want to leave. Do we ever hear about that in history? No. And blacks will scoff, oh, what, one or two people? And no, lots. There were Christians that had slaves and they had the fear of God and they treated them the way the word told them. You know, the Bible used the term slaves. Did you see that? Slaves, submit to your masters. Masters, treat your slaves knowing that their master is God also. I'm sorry, you got to go to work every day. You're a slave. I like diversity, but diversity is not defined by just the African American community. I am diversity. There was a black guy. I have a friend in Ohio. He taught English 6 years in Guangzhou, China. He's in his 30s. He was working at Amazon. A black guy came up, popped off at him and said, yeah, you people don't have no culture. I said, man, I wish I was there. I would have spun around and said, excuse me, young man, what are you talking about? I look at Europe. You got Germany, you got Switzerland, you got Austria, you got Poland, you got Russia, you got UK, Ireland, Spaniards. Ireland is not the same as Austria. Austria is not the same as Poland. Poland's not the same as Hungary. Yugoslavia, or what was the former Yugoslavia, is not the same. I am Caucasian. I'm not like most Caucasian men in this country. And when the woman went off about my hair, I said, "Oh, celebrate diversity. I don't have to be African American and have a weave or a wig just like you." Oh, they get so mad at that. They get so angry at that. Why? Because I told the truth and it hurts? Hey, happy Independence Day to you too, man. Thank you. There is no law that says that I cannot freely speak and make a factual observation of the Black community. The Black community needs to back themselves up like a Tonka truck, and they need to clean up their bullshit before they talk about our race. They need to stop using the N word. They need to stop promoting foul, profane music with the N word in it. They need to stop driving up and down neighborhoods and playing it so loud to offend and incense everybody. They need to stop raising their kids to be little hood rats. Not all are doing this. Not all of them behave like I'm talking about, but a lion's share of them do. My friend in Apple Valley is now deceased. Things got so bad with next door, then he decided to play music real late one night when I was trying to get to sleep, go to work. And after 11 o'clock, I finally called. Was anonymous. The black sheriff came up to him and said, "Yeah, it was somebody called out of this house. They're not supposed to do that." This culture down here protects their own. They'll kill each other. But when there's a white person involved, there's unity in the black community. It is not that hard to cut down the fallacious reasoning of black people when they defend the shit that they shouldn't defend. Rodney King. I grew up in LA. It angered me seeing that guy go 110 miles an hour on the LA freeways the wrong way. What if I'd have been out there in my Ford truck? Then he'd have hit me, flipped me, and killed me. Would the black community care? Hell no. They don't. What if white people went into Rodney's neighborhood and said, "We're sick of this stuff," and burned their houses, flipped their cars over, and tore up everything? Don't you think we'd have a right to? When I was in Hong Kong, I'll never forget a Chinese marine engineer sat across the booth from me and ate lunch. In Hong Kong, you don't get your own seat. That's restaurant property. You're at a booth and there's nobody sitting there and they're full. It's lunch hour. They'll put a Chinese couple of women next to me. It was awesome because I got to meet cool people. And this guy was an engineer, worked on cargo ships going back and forth from Hong Kong to San Francisco. And he says, "Michael, I want to ask you one question. What is wrong with the black people in your country?" And I laughed. I said, "Oh, you see that? Yeah, I see the news. They riot. They tear up stuff. You know, if they did that here," I said, "oh, it'd be over." I said, "They believe we're all racist. They believe life is always unfair to them." And I said, and they just, they that's their way of dealing with it. Destroy everything and steal. Decency and civility. Absolutely. When I bought this house, it was awful. And I keep getting the mail of all the women that lived here, and they were not good housekeepers, but I saw the pictures of some of the women who lived here because they left all their stuff in the back room. Pictures and picture frames and stilettos and booty dresses and cleavage dresses. Spend $300 for a hair job and nails, but you can't clean your damn house. A lot of the people that I work with don't follow the rules, don't show pride in company property. and they look down their nose at me. That's fact. You'd almost get the feeling they think they're the superior race. Nobody's a superior race. Nobody. It's funny. The jail report shows the polarization right here. A white person says something that's truthful, and here come a bunch of blacks to laugh, to wag, to make their comments. And I defended a guy the other day. I said, you're not going to get anywhere with these people. They can talk crap about our race, but you can't say anything factual about theirs. And I've come up with my own phraseologies with this community. It's racism go round. They ride the carousel of racism. That mentality to sue. Anything happens, just cry racism and you get a free out of jail card. Out of all the people that I've met after living in China, living around Hispanics, the African American community is the least likely ethnic group to take personal responsibility and accountable for the bullshit. You never see the Asians rioting and acting up like this. But let's talk about how bad America is. They talk about how privileged it is. Okay. How come none of them moved to Ghana, Kenya, Zambia? There's a woman named Mabel years ago that I spoke to, and she wanted to marry me and said, I will process visa for you. I said, you can't do that. She goes, Pacific, I have the money. I have a house. I have a farm. Plus, I'm an educator. I wasn't in love with her that way. Had I been, I would have sold my place and I would have gone over there. I don't have a problem living in a black country. It's safer than South Augusta. But what's interesting is there's people from Africa that want to come here. They hear what the blacks are saying, but it doesn't stop them. They want to come here and live. And when they come over here, they're not walking around saying, oh, they're all racist. They go get a job and they better themselves and they say, I'm blessed to be an American now. This race here, this culture, a lot of them exist on drama, real or imagined. And you can't get through them. The loose, provocative culture that they put out there, the open sex culture, and have a kid without teaching them morals, without teaching them to respect, yes, white people too. And then you got these rappers that are regular comments, people that support that kind of music. They have no, people that listen to rap music with the F word, the N word, and that horrible satanic stuff, they have no credibility to speak on any deeper issue. Okay? Garbage in, garbage out. You're going to get garbage responses, garbage behavior. People listening to that kind of music want to smash up and bust up stuff. That's not good music. I don't know anybody who grew up listening to Marvin Gaye and Barry White that wanted to go out and shoot everybody and steal stuff and tear down cities. But this rap music, boy, yeah. The jail report is loaded with blacks murdering blacks. They do not value other people's lives. This race is very self-centered. The nightclub I go to, I stopped going more and more because all they do is get black DJs playing black stuff. And it's the bad stuff that they're playing. They're not playing the good stuff. There's all this music out there. We're going to play one kind of music for one kind of people. anybody listening to a diet of Tupac, Snoop Dogg, and all this other rap crap is not the kind of person I want as a neighbor. That's not the kind of a person who's going to have my back ever. That is rude music. It is disrespectful. And it's not music. It's just garbage. And the problem in this country is politicians, liberal white politicians, women, are caving into this idea. Nobody wants to discipline or hold accountable blacks anymore because you'll be called a racist for doing it. I can tell you how many times I had routes that were all black and one black kid's acting up. I've told him 3 or 4 times, sit down. Finally, I had to stop the bus and say, I need you to move up front. Why? You keep getting up out of your seat and standing up and walking around. I told you 3 or 4 times not to do it, so move up. No, I'm good. I said, no, you're not. I need you to move up front. And they want to create a power struggle. And even some other blacks have said, man, show some respect, man. He told you to sit down. He gave you a chance. Move up. We want to go to school. Quit holding everybody up. I said, that one right there. Thank you for your comment, lady. I appreciate that. Many times when I drove those buses, I felt like, man, I'm hated by all these people. It takes balls and guts for me as a white guy to face black kids all bigger than me with behavioral problems and respect problems. And then telling me I'm racist because I asked them to sit down. I said, I'm racist because everybody else that's black is seated and I haven't said a word to them. And I said a word to you because you keep getting out of your seat. Do you even know what the word racism means? Or are you guilty of it yourself? That usually causes silence. The African American community is like a cult in their thinking. Not all of them. There are some that have become conservative, some that have become born again Christians, and they see the light. But what really bothers me about the African American community is those that call themselves Democrats and call themselves Christians and support abortion, support gay marriage, and support the Democratic Party, which is divisive. The Bible says showing favoritism, showing partiality. And blacks do it a lot. I go to the workplace and I can tell the difference the way blacks greet each other versus greeting me. The elevation in voice. I've spent 5 years in Augusta and I've seen that blacks definitely got some problems they need to address. I always loved it when you got kids acting up on a bus and you got one kid who's constantly acting up. And I've told him many times, sit down, stop throwing stuff out the window, and I finally have him move up front. Man, you didn't do nothing about him. I said, I didn't see him doing anything. That's why I'm seeing you. And you 5 times, get up in the front and sit down. And I'll be turning a corner and I'll see one kid out of the corner of my eye in the student mirror step up. See, he's standing up. I said, yeah, I'm turning the corner. You think you can mind your own business, stay in your lane? Young man in the back, stand up again. You'll be up there too. They're always about fairness. And you ever notice on the YouTube videos when a black woman gets pulled over, black guy, they want to argue. They want to talk about the cop. You didn't do right. You didn't do right. What am I being pulled over for? You went 80 through that 25 zone. That's why. Oh, he just pulled me over because he's racist. Michelle Obama is not a wise woman. She was not the stateliest first lady either. Michelle Obama does not live in the black community. She did not go to Compton with her money and try to make a difference. None of these black big mouths, and I say big mouths, that are in politics, Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, Joy Reid, they don't live in the hood. They got police protection. They got alarms. They got security. They got gates. Many of them voted against Maxine Waters, voted against walls in Mexico on the border. She's got a wrought iron wall and brick wall all the way around her mansion. People need to look at this stuff because I smell hypocrisy. Maxine Waters told black people, you need to get up into their faces. She encouraged them to get up in our faces at the gas stations, at the restaurants. And blacks love to say, oh, look at January 6th. A handful of idiots that acted bad went to the Capitol and acted like a bunch of idiots versus billions of dollars of damage from one end of the country to the other, led by sympathizers of a thug. A black man named George Floyd who held a gun to a black woman when she was pregnant to rob her. Where was the outcry from the black community about black women and their rights? There wasn't one. How come there was no outcry from the black female community about the way black men treat their women? It's always only if a white guy does something, even if the white guy did his job to perfection. He's a racist. You can't talk to these clowns. You cannot. They're like a cult. They're like the Mormons. They're like the Jehovah's Witnesses. They're like atheists. They're like Democrats. They believe this body of false info. And the same with the blacks. Yeah, Mad Maxine, she's a nasty person. She should have been charged and jailed for inciting lawlessness. Nothing happened to her. But we got this all in the Democratic Party. Ilhan Omar stood and ranted against Jews on the House floor. Not one Democrat said, that's anti-Semitic. You can stop now. It's okay for blacks to shit talk whites all day long. We're racist. We're privileged. We're systemically racist. We're part of the KKK. Really? I don't support the KKK. They should be rounded up and shot. Every single one of them. All of them. But your party that you vote for is the one that had that happen. You're not very bright, people. You vote for a party that kept you in chains. Now all of a sudden they're your best friend, keeping you in the projects, keeping you in IBT cards. We all know how many cop cars show up in the projects. What you want, what you gonna do? Bad boys, yeah. Funny, huh? Funny how the evidence stands against you, not me. No one's allowed to talk about your people, but you can throw comments like a monkey shitting in his hand and throwing it through the cage. But we're not allowed to say anything. We're not allowed to react. We're not allowed to rebuttal. Excuse me, black people. That's false. I have a constitution and I have a holy Bible and I have a God who says you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. And this white boy is going to talk about the black community and the shit that they're doing just as much as I talk about what my Caucasian race is doing. I'm an equal opportunity criticizer. When you're doing the wrong thing, I'm going to talk about it. Now, I would love to tell stories of students I've had to deal with that were not following directives and the threatening and the yelling and the screaming and the carrying on and the behavior they would do on the buses. Unbelievable. Black girls. Well on their way to becoming a sweet lady. Not. Just me saying what I say, I could hear a black woman say, I'd like to kick his ass. I'd like to shoot him. Yep, that's the way you solve problems. Just kill everybody. Aren't you glad white people don't think that way? Because if they did, based on what a lot of white people see, your race would be gone. Yeah, white people don't want to move into black neighborhoods. And the next time I go, by the grace of God, I won't do it again. I won't do it again. I had to go to court against this woman. Not very neighborly, black woman, irresponsible. Didn't ever come over and said, I'm sorry about my dogs. I apologize. My name's so nothing. And a boyfriend who doesn't even live over there. Hasn't helped her fix the house that's burned. House is condemned, living in a trailer. Go to court a couple of years ago. I owned my house 38 years. He owned his 3, and he's going to come over. Excuse me, black woman. It's called real estate. It don't matter how long you've been over here, and you burned your house down, and you didn't have insurance, and your shit and your dogs and your trash is coming into my yard, and noise is coming into my home, and your son's disturbing me, and the black boyfriend who had about as much intelligence as a matchstick, the one that you don't strike to light, says this. Well, if that young man, I'm 58, I'm not young, could use some understanding and have some conversation. Her son just got out of prison. Oh, that explains why he's acting shitty. Got out of prison, we're going to go back to being a jerk again. The only one on the street behaving like that. So, with the black mindset, we have to bow to whatever they're doing. We can't say anything, can't call it a question. But if I offend or make them upset, boy, I better watch out. Where do they get this twisted logic? It's not logical. Where do they get this twisted thinking? Rashida Tlaib is a woman that should have been fired, supporting Hamas. I'm not even going to go there. That woman's off the wall. And that's what's happening to our country. It's being divided and conquered by hate groups and saying that Trump is racist. He never said a word against blacks, never said the N-word. Biden said he didn't want his daughter going to a black public school because he said it was a jungle in there, and the blacks totally ignored all that. I work with black people down here that tell me these dang children are so bad. Is that because of whites? No, not at all. The whites got their problem, children. I talked about this for years. Dylan Klebold, Eric Harris, Sandy Hook Elementary, and all these schools were dominated by white upper middle class boys where mom and dad gave them everything but really weren't actively involved. You know, come home, throw your Zappums in the microwave, raise yourself. And they got gas cans and butane tanks and guns and ammo and clips and shot up Columbine. I was driving for Denver schools the day that happened. And Columbine was on the southwest edge of Denver, in Littleton in Jefferson County. Yeah, you won't see a black guy come in and shoot up all the school. You won't see that. But you see individuals shoot and take out their own constantly. Never ends. And you listen to people like LeBron, who lives in a gated community with police protection, gets overpaid for what he does, dribbling a basketball. And Ed Coulter said it right. Most of them, their only claim to fame is pop culture or sports. It's not in the academia world. There are some, but you don't hear about them. And you got kids, they're going to be the next rapper. They're going to be the next basketball. And I've told kids, I said, you play basketball, okay? But have something else that you like, because you may not make the team. Only so many can make the cut. And I'm sorry, but this diva culture with the black culture it's sad. You're not acting like ladies anymore. And even black men on YouTube have a channel where they're done with you. Said, man, why I won't date a black African American woman. They're done. They're done. The amount of time and energy I had to put in this house, getting it to the point it is now, was unbelievable. If I'd have known all that I had to do, I never would have bought this place. Black women living in here. People leave their doors open down here. All the bugs, all the roaches, rats, everything is running in and out of the house. The woman was told by the judge to get control of the dogs. She waited 3 months after that was said to her The dog still jumped the fence, barked, came into my yard. And it got to the point where the pit bull was outside my back door. I thought, legally I could whack that thing over the head with a shovel. It was at my back door barking at me. I could have laid it out right there. Would have been justified. It's a threat to me, but I didn't. The damn woman's going to get up there and tell me she owned her house for 38 years. Yeah, you ruined it. You know what the Bible says about that? The foolish woman plucketh down her own house. Exhibit A, or B for black. And the boyfriend, he's not helping her fix it up so she can move in there. Not sure what he's doing. Comes to visit her once in a blue moon. And he comes in there and is going to posture in front of me. And I'm trying to maintain decorum. Because, the judge let me speak, then let them speak. And I raised my hand. The judge did not call on me. Because I'm not going to misbehave in a court. And I was going to say, excuse me, sir, you do not live over here when this stuff was going on. You don't live in that house. You were not there when all this stuff was going on. I don't need to have understanding. I'm a homeowner. She's a homeowner. Her stuff is spilling into my property. Her son and her dogs are interrupting my sleep. I got to work for a living. I don't get the luxury of dealing drugs and stay up all night and make noise with no repercussions, like your son. And you just told me he got out of prison. That explains why he's acting like a butthole in the neighborhood. Obviously, he didn't learn the lesson in there about respect. He went over to my neighbor over here and said, that white boy calling on me. And Nero, who lived there, doesn't anymore, said this. He said, that white boy, I'm going to call on you. You racing up and down the street. I got 3 little girls, man. You're dangerous. You making all that noise. You waking up my wife and him. I got no problem with the white guy. He and I get along good. He's a good neighbor. You got to show respect. See, I meet some black people that got a pair of balls and they stand up for what's right. There's black people in Augusta that like me for me and don't play that racist bullshit. Nero had his leg blown off walking down Olive Road. Carload of blacks pull over. Hey, man, get in. No, I'm good. They kept stopping and he kept walking. He heard a noise and he thought something had happened, but he went down on the ground and he looked and blood was running out of his pants. They shot most of the back of the calf off. The reason I knew that he was standing in the yard with shorts, I said, Nero, what happened to your leg? Why is it smaller? I said, they ever catch? He said, no. They also shot at somebody else just before they got to me. I said, was this at night? He said, no, it was daytime. A black woman pulled over, cradled his head and said, don't die. I called an ambulance. Sad story. You know what he said after that? He said, you know how many of my buddies that come over to my house, they said, oh, you got a white guy moved in next door. Does that bother you? He said, I looked at him. He said, the white guy didn't do this to my leg. I'm not worried about him at all. The neighbor on the other side of me, 77 years old, got bars all over his windows. Are they for the white people? No, they're for his own people. Black people get arrogant. They like to talk shit about me, put me down. I'm shaggy. My hair's 80s, this, that. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. The day that African-American people can listen to a white man speak truth and stop giving a bunch of excuses, it will be a miracle. Hallelujah, Jesus. And the day that black preachers stop preaching this Democrat porridge and start telling their kids, stop listening to that rap music. It's bad for you. It's immoral. It's sexual, indecent. It's hateful. You call yourself a Christian, start having a mind of God on things. 2020, not one political black person, not one Oprah Winfrey, not one Michelle Obama, not Barack Obama, not one of them stood up and said, hey, stop doing this. Stop tearing up stuff. It's not the way to go about it. Martin Luther King didn't go for that. There's a lot of things about the black community that are very interesting to read. Remember Louis Farrakhan, the nut job that started the Million Man March? Yeah. Malcolm X daughter believes that Louis Farrakhan had him killed. Black on black. Malcolm went through an interesting, first he condoned peace, then he condoned violence. He kind of flip-flop. Louis Farrakhan turned on him because Louis Farrakhan was an extremist. Louis Farrakhan's not about peace. And BLM, they're being investigated. You know, those lovely black women that helped themselves to the cookie jar, all the money that was donated and bought homes in Southern California. And a black woman came up and rang her doorbell and said, I'd like to talk to you. She's in her home on her video saying, oh my gosh, Candace Owens is out here, wants to talk. She didn't have the guts to talk to her. This kind of black community that I'm talking about is very selfish, very narcissistic, very opportunistic, steal, unethical behavior. And they want to comment about how racist we are. You play your music and shake the neighborhood. Why in the hell would you think that we're going to respect that? We have rights too. I'm a homeowner. I pay my taxes. They weren't paying taxes on that place. They finally paid them. And when I learned that you could buy, if it shows up in the city, I was going to pay it. They got a year to pay it plus 20%. If they don't, mine. And it was close. I said, if that shows up on the city, I'll call the city and pay the bill. Then when you get it, I'll tell the sheriff, this is mine. I need you to remove her and the dog. And I'd go get a bulldozer and bulldoze the house, clean up the yard, and just have it as a piece of land. Just so no more idiots can move there and disturb me. Things have died down somewhat. The two dogs went away. The son doesn't do that when she's there. Only when she's gone does he hoop up the music. And he goes over and tells Nero that white boy called, and I'm washing my windows with my back, and he gets in and starts that car. Revs and revs and revs and makes all this ear-splitting noise. You know somebody's got a problem with it, so keep doing it. That's what black folk do. It's not in their mindset to say, you know, I'm pissing that guy off. Maybe I shouldn't do that. He didn't do anything to me. That is not in their mindset. Their mindset is, I'm alpha. No one going to tell me what to do. I wonder if I was able to disturb him out of his sleep over and over again, if he would just put up with that. I'm not black. I don't have to think like that. I thank God I'm not black. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm not locked into the chains of the false thinking that the majority of the 13% of African Americans are locked into. America is always going to have this problem until men all across the board stand up, push back, and say, nope, we're not doing this anymore. You don't obey the police. You don't obey this. There's going to be accountability. And if you think it's so bad here, go, leave. Ghana made an invitation in 2020. I welcome African Americans. Nobody took Ghana up on it. I had a lady that I talked to, and I like her. We get along, but I disagreed with her. I said, if you guys hate America so bad, she goes, I don't celebrate. I don't salute the flag. I said, so why do you stay? Where am I going to go? I have no family. I have no history. I said, but we're so awful. She goes, you're not awful. I said, well, thank you. I take that as a compliment. I don't try to be awful. And I care about her as a person. Let me tell you something, folks. If I felt this whole country was against me, I would get on my hands and knees and say, God, find me a country where I can go. They don't leave. They bitch about it. They fuss about it. They call us all racist. The Obamas got rich here. Oprah Winfrey got rich here. Maxine Waters got rich here. They do very well in America, so it can't be all that bad. You can play shitty, crappy rap music, which is banned in several Middle Eastern countries as being too vulgar. Are we getting somewhere here? I think so. And we got Africans leaving Africa to come here because of the chances to succeed. We got Filipinos and Asians and people all around the world. They hear what the blacks are saying. None of it's causing them to say, oh, the blacks are saying all this stuff. Maybe we shouldn't go. It's racist. Because they don't believe it. That's why. Nigerians don't believe it. Ethiopians don't believe it. Somalians don't believe it. They come over here because of the promise, because of the chance to excel. White men are so terrible. People want to come to a system that whites put into place. But let's go on. Let's talk to some Augusta blacks who think they're airtight in their argument that I'm full of crap. Name something that the African Americans invented that you use every day that you cannot live without. Da na 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 na. I don't have an answer for that. That is incorrect. That's going to cost you $2,000. The iPhone, Steve Jobs, white. The Marconi wireless. How many black people know what the Marconi wireless is? I'll bet you there's not one here in Augusta that knows what it is. That was that thing on the Titanic that was used to send out the distress call that they'd hit an iceberg. Marconi was Italian. White guy. Alexander Graham Bell on the telephone. The phonograph. Steamships. Yeah, steamships with reciprocating engines. The automobile, spaceships, modern war machinery. None of them were invented by African Americans. And African Americans sit in our country and bitch and complain, stir the pot, riot, tear shit down, kill their own kind. Black on black is off the chain. And whites are so bad. Okay, don't use that light switch. Don't use that ceiling fan in the South. Don't use the air conditioner. Oh, wait, a black person. A black person invented something to do with the truck refrigeration. But the AC was not invented by blacks. Okay? Black people want to be so separate. And they were saying during BLM, they were talking tough. We need our own place where there's no white people. Guess what? Go across the Atlantic Ocean and there you go. Don't go to Cape Town. But there's places in Africa you can go. Get away from us. I moved here. I didn't move to Lily White. I grew up in LA. I grew up in a very diverse Vietnamese kids, Mexican kids, Caucasian kids, German kids, black kids. I don't remember at Walteria Elementary people standing up and beating the tar out of each other and doing what they do here. People just seem to get along. Even a black person said years ago something very profound. Man, we all used to dance the same music together, disco. What happened? That's my question. What happened? Blacks were in the TV shows. Blacks were in the movies. Life was going good. Now America's so divided, and the Democratic Party is the devil for that. And it doesn't matter where I move in this country, there's an element of African Americans that you cannot reason with and cannot talk to. They're only going to see one thing, the lie that they've been indoctrinated into. I don't need to have understanding about a foolish woman. I don't need to have understanding about a foolish woman who's affecting me. I didn't do anything to her. I had actually heard what had happened in the beginning before all the BS started. I thought, my gosh, I could buy her all the sheetrock so she could do her house. I could do all the rip out for her and say, if you can hire somebody to put all this up, because I got my own house. I would have done that for her. Not because I'm trying to get attention for myself, but I would have helped a black older woman out because it's the right thing to do. But when all that stuff started happening and she didn't care that her dogs, you're not living at the house, and you got 3 dogs over there. But somebody's coming down to feed them every other day. And I'm like, we're not getting our house fixed. I think she was in an apartment somewhere. Probably didn't get paid the rent during COVID, got booted out. She owned the property, even though delinquent on taxes. And then somebody brought the travel trailer there, put it in place. I thought, what's this? Lives in it. She says in the courtroom something that shocked me. I have the dogs because people were breaking into the house. Man, I was here. I didn't see anybody monking with that house. It's damaged. It's burned out, broken. Who wants to go in there? And the yard's fenced off. Yeah, the fence is only 32 inches high to walk over it. But if I saw something going, I'm going to call, hey, somebody's breaking into that property because it's the right thing to do. She said, me and my daughter, we live there. I don't even own a gun. That's not something you want to say in a public courtroom, man. Not in Georgia. I'm no danger to you, but anybody else go, oh, she's not armed. Mm-hmm. Somebody want to take advantage. There you go. You better hold your cards close to your chest. And what she doesn't realize is I've improved my property. And if she would do the same over there, that would help neighborhood real estate values, but her property's blight. And my neighbor came to me and said recently, she don't got no money. She ain't ever going to get that place done. So you come over there and do a little something and it's dead for a while. I find it interesting. Her big grown son, I don't know what he does, but he'd come in different cars with non-matching body panels and making noise. And he seems to have stopped most of that. And the other dog is kenneled up, not allowed to roam. Now she's got a rooster over there and the rooster's cool. That don't bother me. Doesn't bother me. I've never spoken to her. We've never had a conversation. And she made assessments of me in the courtroom. I own my house 38 years. You owe his 33. Oh, so you got 10 years. That means you can be a butthead in the neighborhood and I can't say anything. The black mentality kicks in again. And I wasn't going to do this video because there's a bunch of scary, creepy people in this town that they'll just shoot and hate. And they don't like what I say. I'm going to kill that fucking white boy. That's a lot of their mentality. But here's the way I look at it. Speak the truth and trust in God. That's it. And one of them kills me, guess where I go? Home. That guy who pulls that trigger, you got to give an account to that. And he may get away with it here. Probably will. But not on that side. I would love to make a difference in the black community. I'm down here. The longer I've lived down here, I'm not real impressed with it. But I'd love to make a difference. I'd like to see black people soar to higher heights. I don't have a problem with black men being more successful than me. I have no problem with that. Because I don't consider myself successful anyway. I mean, I'm not the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I never invented anything the world needs. I'm just a man working on his house, going to work every day and dealing with the crap called life. Black people need role models. And the ones that they're choosing aren't good. Rappers, ball players, clowns. African American community needs to do better than that. Much better. Sports stars are not heroes. Musicians pulling in gargantuan sums of money for trash can lyrics, those are not role models. It's called circle the drain culture. It's what happens when a society is about to implode on itself. There are black men and women who have put their faith in God, who have been delivered from the toxic poison of the brainwash of the crap that they believe against us and buying into the Democrat Party lies. Those are great people to be around. But they have admitted to me, oh, I've been disowned. They call me an Oreo. That's how you know you're in a cult. When somebody tries to get out and you hate them. No different than the Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, evolution, which is a false crock of crap. Nothing in the fossil record, nothing in true science proves that evolution exists. Or the living record. You tell a lie long enough, people start to believe it. We've raised a generation of educated kids, so-called, on the lie that there is no God. We've raised a whole lot of black people in this country on the lie that all the whites are systemically racist, that whites are privileged, that whites get favoritism. No, we don't. I don't. I'm an individual. I don't know why I'm lumped in with that paintbrush. I didn't buy a home in Laguna. BLM bought homes in Southern California. I can't afford to live there. Maxine Waters, Oprah Winfrey's got 8 mansions. I don't know any white people personally that own 8 mansions. And Oprah and Michelle both say that whites are privileged. Don't you love these pot stirrers, these race baiters? And they say that as if though it's dogmatic fact. Why do I have a problem with it? Because it's BS. That's why. I know people that are privileged in this country. White feminist women. In the workplace, women can, and black women too. Women can get away with a lot of crap that men can't. They can say things. I remember Denver Public Schools. I walked into a break room and a Hispanic woman said, "My coochie itches." I said, "Really?" "Well, it does." I said, "If I were to walk in here," and I walked very quietly, and I said, "If I was to walk in here and say my balls itch, what would happen?" "You'd probably get fired." I said, "So you think it's appropriate to say that in here?" "Yeah, because she's a woman." The Democratic Party's objective is not for blacks to rise to great heights. It never has been. The Democratic Party will do whatever it needs to do to win. Encouraging illegals to walk in. Go interview the black people in South Chicago. Go talk to them and see how they feel about all these illegals coming in there. Watch this. Okay, blacks. Most people don't want to walk through a black neighborhood that are afraid of them. But these illegals coming up there are messing with the local blacks, and the blacks are finally crying out saying, "Who brought all these people in here? They're not respecting us. They're taking over. They're doing things at night." And I want to shout to them, you voted for the party that did that. Guess what? They're finally starting to go, forget Biden. I'm done. I want blacks to succeed. I don't think I'm better than them. I don't think my race is better than them. But African American culture, by and large, is not good. That, to me, is not the kind of celebrating of diversity I want to see. And I should not live in fear to state my belief, my opinion. They say whatever they want and have no shame, no conscience most of the time. They'll tear up American streets without one sense of, hey, this is wrong. What if I was married and a black guy roared through a red light and struck my wife and killed her? Should I go into this neighborhood and burn the house down and terrorize his wife and children? No. But that's what they do when they're wronged. And every case where it's so-called police brutality, they never admit this fact. It started with a black man disobeying the law. And they're all out there with their microscope. Oh, the cop didn't do right. No, it's never about what you did. That's a cult. It's like my brother-in-law and sister are deeply entrenched in the Mormon church, Temple Mormons. My brother-in-law said, if you want to know what a Mormon believes, you need to ask a Mormon, not anybody else. Where have I heard this before? Black people saying, you can't speak on it. You're not black. You're not a Mormon. You're not a Jehovah's Witness. You're not a scientist. Science. Isn't it sad what they've done to science? They took science, pigeonholed a bunch of crap into it, and it's still called science. They put opinion in there. They put atheistic, faith-based belief system. Watch this. You're going to tell me that a single cell crawled up somewhere and formed this. And I'm supposed to call you credible. That's like me saying my pickup truck out there materialized all by itself and created itself. What are the chances of a tornado going through a junkyard and assembling the pieces out of that junkyard into a brand new 747 with all of its wiring and engines and seats and everything ready for takeoff? Run the math on that one. Atheists laugh at faith. They say it's a crutch. Well, your crutch is bigger than mine then, because you're in a wheelchair and that's supporting you. How you say that, Pacific? Because it takes more faith to believe that you just happened by sheer randomness and that there was no intelligent designer. And this is one of the problems in the Black community. They're raised in a public education system that's not teaching them, thus saith the Lord. They're teaching kids they evolved from primordial slime and monkeys. Oh, that gives you a sense of value, don't it? And what are these kids doing? They're acting worse than the animals. But when you have a cult isn't just a false religion that denies the tenets of biblical Christianity. A cult to me is defined as the Mormon Church, okay? They believe in they're polytheistic. They believe in many gods. They believe Jesus was the half brother of Satan. They believe God had sex with Mary to create Jesus. Okay, there's so many things wrong with that. We're not even going to biblically unpack them. Mormonism does not believe in biblical Christianity. And their whole name and their whole edifice is built on a lie. The church, it is not a church, of Jesus Christ is not of Jesus Christ, of Latter-day Saints. They are not Latter-day Saints. They're not even saints. Jehovah's Witnesses, they are not witnesses of Jehovah. And you can always tell a false belief system when you see stuff like that. Mormon Church has Hallmark commercials that look so good, they get you. So family-oriented. Smoke and mirrors. It's a cult. And Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses are progressive religions. When you first come into it, your eyes are not open to the big panorama until you get deeper in. Baby steps, okay? You get indoctrinated into the baby steps brainwash. The Mormon Church is now trying to say that Joseph Smith was not a polygamist. And yet in the Denver Post years ago, there was an article where the church finally admitted that he was. So it goes back and forth. There's historical records all across the American landscape that Joseph Smith was a polygamist. All kinds. Yes, I have friends that are Seventh-day Adventists, and I have a problem with their belief system. Many of them claim that they're born again, but they don't believe there's a place called hell. They don't believe in eternal destruction or suffering. What made you get out of it? I'd be curious to know that. You ought to do a video. I would encourage you to do a video so I can watch it. Tell me about your involvement and how you got out of it. I like to hear stuff like that. People that saw the light. When I say that the Black community in America is like a cult, they will not listen to white people speak the truth about their race. They will typically only listen to Black people and Black Democrats or their Black preachers. Most of the Black preachers in their midst are not conservatives at all. They're Democrat touting preachers. They're not encouraging their congregations to get away from rap. They're not encouraging their young men to have a fear and reverence of God. It's a bunch of hoopla. Showtime for the sheep. And people say, you're bashing. No, I'm not. When you become a Christian and the light is turned on, you see it. Jehovah's Witnesses say that Jesus Christ did not call himself God. Yeah, he did. Read in John where the disciples were standing there baiting him with trick question after trick question. We are Abraham's descendants. He said, no, you're not. Yeah, we are. No, you're not. If you were Abraham's descendants, you would have done what he did. Abraham rejoiced to see my day. And you want to crucify me. And they laugh. Abraham rejoiced to see your day. You're not even 50 years old. And Abraham rejoiced. And Jesus, what did he say, folks? Before Abraham was, I am. And it said the Jews picked up stones to stone him. Why did they pick up stones? You don't say I am. Remember when Moses went up the mount and he saw the burning bush, and at the end of the end run of all that discourse back and forth, Moses with God, he says, okay, God, who do I say to Pharaoh sent me? Tell him I am sent you. The Jews, it was a executable offense if a man stood up and said, I am. Jesus said it right there. Before Abraham was, I am. Why did they pick up stones? Because he was calling himself God right there. So for Jehovah's Witnesses to say never declare itself to be God, lie. But they have a New World Translation Bible, which is not proper Greek, not proper Hebrew at all. Charles Taze Russell was actually brought into a courtroom back in the 1800s. He had 3 major religions started in the 1800s. Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, and Seventh-day Adventists. And I believe Christian Science came into the mix at that time too. Right about the same time that America was beset with snake oil salesmen. I got this elixir. It works. It cures colds, everything. And the lady who's home by herself and her husband's out there riding horses doing his thing. Oh, I got to buy this. And as soon as he gets the money, the wagon rolls out of town. She finds out it doesn't work. And the man says, when he comes back, he ain't coming back. That's why they were called traveling salesmen. Suckers are us. And religion was no exception. When you have a man saying he had a dream that God told him that Baptists, Lutherans, and Methodists were all wrong, but he's going to tell everybody, and he has the Urim and the Thummim, and he has the golden tablets, and he said there were ancient civilizations in America, and Christ came to the Americas, and the archaeologists took him to task. I love archaeologists because they can tell you if something's true or not. Biblical archaeology is confirmed all the time in Israel. There is no confirmation of Mormon lies by modern day archaeologists. They find pottery shards and arrowhead fragments. No big advanced city ruins. Please. Yeah, Ellen G. White, to me, was a false prophetess. And a good rule of thumb, gentlemen, any religion or movement started by women is something that we grown men need to stay away from. The Apostle Paul said, I do not permit a woman to teach or have authority over men. That brings me to my next point. You got black women that are on an authority trip anyway, claiming to be pastors. Wrong answer. Go to Timothy and read about the overseer, the bishop. He, pronoun, must be the husband of one wife. He must have his children in subjection to him. He must have a good reputation to outsiders. It doesn't say she must be the wife of one husband. But again, when you're in occult thinking, and in the African American community, you got black women, they've got the mentality, oh no, nobody going to tell me what to do. And let me tell you what a friend of mine said. A black woman said to my friend this: problem with my own culture, black women get an ounce of power and it goes straight to their head. I see that in my workplace. I see it by the stories people have told me. They do something wrong out there in traffic, you honk the horn, they'll slam on the brakes, get up out of the car. They're going to exert their loudmouth authority and they're not going to move. Man, lady, I honked because you pulled out in front of me. Can you just get out of the way? You don't honk at me. I'm a black woman. I don't fucking care. I'm about to run my truck over your car if you don't move it. Stupid. And that's the general impression that most of us get. You don't see the sweet black ladies. You don't see the sweet black ladies in the old stories and the old movies that were humble, beautiful. I saw the TV movie when they allowed black students, to go to white schools, and she was going into a university. This pretty black lady, she had the old-fashioned hair, dressed real nice, and she's walking up. It was in Birmingham. I think it was a university school, whatever. And kids are spitting on her, and I found myself enraged. And one white boy come down and took her books because she tripped. She's humiliated. I do not support what happened with the blacks in this country. It was BS. It wasn't right. But I should not be held guilty for what those folks did. And the Bible says something very interesting. God said when he made the new covenant that he would no longer hold the fathers accountable for the sins of their children. He held each individual accountable for their own stuff. Black community, you claim to be Christians, go to the scriptures. I don't owe you a dime. Nobody needs to repay you nothing. If anything, you resurrect those slaves from the dead and let's hand them a paycheck. Okay? I would support that. That should have been done in the 1800s. Not now. Give it to some ungrateful kids producing rap music, smoking dope, and driving up and down the neighborhoods like banshees so they can buy $9,000 rims with a hoopty? Okay. No. We don't need to stand down. We don't need to go up and get in their faces, but if they talk to us, that's bullshit. And what I find myself doing more, I'm not going to talk to you because you're in a cult mindset. You just view things by color, not facts. Yeah, I read a little bit about Ellen G. White. And Ellen G. White, I'm trying to remember, but there was some spinoffs from Joseph Smith. And wasn't Ellen G. White one of them? Not Joseph Smith. Charles Taze Russell, Jehovah's Witness. Charles Taze Russell had deceived a lot of people, and he had predicted numerous times that God would come. And everybody was white sheets on top of the roof. It didn't happen. And that right there is enough to say this is a false religion. God himself cleared it in his word. He said, if somebody comes in my name saying this and this, and it doesn't happen exactly as it says, it's a false prophet. He's to be stoned. Well, nobody stoned Charles Taze Russell back then. The Mormon Church is another one. Joseph Smith was criminal, taking other men's wives. People were pissed, and he got shot up in a jail. And they say it was all over Mormonism, so he became a martyr. That is a lie. That's what the Mormon Church teaches. The whole thing's built on a lie. Anytime that you take that Bible and twist that word of God, you're a liar. And that's why they deceive so many people, because people would rather believe a lie than believe the truth, lest their deeds be exposed. That's why black people will not sit down and listen to what I have to say without interrupting, steamrolling, yelling I'm racist, yelling I'm not black. They will only surround themselves with teachers hearing what they want to hear. CNN, MSNBC, NPR, PBS, CBS, NBC, ABC, all the liberal networks. And I want you to pay attention to all those liberal networks are owned by rich, white, elite men and women that do not live in the hood. Black people need to ask a question. Why is the media acting like they're trying to curry favor with black people, which is run and owned by filthy rich white people that have nothing to do with black people? Get to that. The African American population never screamed and yelled about the removal of Planned Parenthood. They screamed and yelled about Aunt Jemima, Miss Butterworth, Uncle Ben, Dr. Seuss. I got a riverboat that I found at the flea market. It's Robert E. Lee. Oh no, Robert E. Lee was racist. Robert E. Lee fought for what he believed in, and it was told that he tried to release and free slaves himself. Don't know that for my own, that's what I heard. It's a riverboat. The riverboat ferried people up the river, white or black, a boat's incapable of racism. But they won't remove rap music, which is offensive to me. You see how this goes? Blacks can demand everything. They're sensitive. Got to remove all the statues. Rap music is more dangerous than a damn statue in a park with pigeons shitting on its head. Okay? Rap music is encouraging a generation to be rebellious, disrespectful to women, rape them, tear them up. How about that dumb song by the black artist? Move out the way, B, move out the way. Good stuff there. Where's the women's rights group protesting that? That's demeaning women, men ordering them out of the way. Where's the feminist? Oh, they're quiet because they're defending that crap. How come the blacks are silent about Planned Parenthood? You know, Margaret Sanger, that white woman, Margaret Sanger, who was racist, hated blacks, despised them, wrote lots of stuff that you can historically look up and read. She used abortion to get rid of that black scourge. I didn't see the blacks saying, Planned Parenthood is racist, burn those clinics down. I would have loved it if they burned the clinics down. I would have supported that. It's a killing machine. 61 million people killed by the Democratic Party. How many of those were blacks? How many of those were blacks that could have risen to become great leaders? How many? How come the black community doesn't say a word about abortion? It was designed to get rid of them. They don't say anything about that because the media doesn't draw attention to it. The media is using the ignorance of the blacks while playing them up, race baiting them to get Democrat votes. And when the Democratic Party gains full utopic power or dystopia, they will shred the black race. They will have no use for them. You think I'm making that up? They're pawns in a Democrat evil control game. I have no desire to control blacks. But by the same token, I don't want them invading my home with their offensive music and shaking. That's disrespectful, and it's wrong. It's wrong. You have no right to talk about a race until you clean up yours. It's your people that are killing your people percentile-wise more than my people are killing my people, and way more than whites are killing blacks. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it, the African-American community in the United States. And blacks will listen to this, oh, this racist guy. Yeah, you can't listen to truth, can you? You got to throw racism out there. See, it works like this. Racism is a stigmatizing word. If I can be called racist, that means it discredits anything I say. White man moves to South Augusta, buys house in the hood, goes to a place where I am the minority. Yeah, I hate blacks, right? I'm racist. I had a woman on a bus acting really bad. I told her to move up front. She started screaming and howling and said I was racist, told the driver. I said, excuse me, ma'am, I'm cutting in. I was helping a driver out one day. I lived in Hong Kong. I've dated black women. I moved to South Augusta. I bought my house in a neighborhood where I'm one of the few white guys. Can you tell me how that makes me racist? Well, I didn't know that. I said, of course you didn't. But that's all you're going to say. I asked you to move up front because of what you were doing back there. All through the ride, you're going, eh! The minute you walked on, you laughed and ridiculed me. Did I say anything about that? You're a middle school student. I figure let middle school students do the dumb things they do. I'm not going to be petty over you making fun of me. But then you kept yelling and I told you to quit shouting and then you did it again. The driver had told you to stop and she's black. And what's funny is the driver didn't once turn around and say, he's totally right. You had no right to call him racist. Blacks don't defend me in those arguments. It's not in them. I've heard enough from the black community. The evidence is in. You defend crappy music. You defend vile, hateful, rebel music. And you want to talk about my race. Your music glorifies the N-word, and you get mad when a white person like Lily, the TikTok lady, said the N-word, and the blacks went into full overdrive anger and rage. And I was glad to see white people said freedom of speech, man, freedom of speech. And I agree. It's got to the point now we've been buffaloed and silenced and billy clubbed and branded as racist. It's time for people to stand up and say, nope, not today. The black community in America, if they were in charge of this country, would shipwreck it very fast. Okay? Not all blacks think like this, but they don't get the attention, sadly. It's that crying baby in the church that everybody hears. Preachers trying to preach. It's those bad acting blacks that make all the racket, all the noise, demand all the attention, screaming about their rights. It isn't the good quality blacks that we hear about. Sorry, but the Obamas, Oprah, Maxine, Whoopi, they're not quality people. They're rabble rousers, they're race baiters, and they made their billions and millions, and they're sitting there talking shit about whites. You think that that's what Jesus would have them to do? Nah. Oprah Winfrey denies that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. She tried to embarrass a Southern lady for very firmly standing up to Oprah's BS. You see what happens when you become a pontificator queen of Harpo Productions, which is nothing more than you being impressed with your so-called infinite wisdom. I don't believe that there's only one way. Well, whatever, Oprah, you don't believe in God. Admit it. But she likes Joel Osteen. There's another cult. The health, wealth, and prosperity gospel racketeer. The Cheshire Cat, cotton candy theologian. William Miller, yes. When you're dealing with foolish thinking, you're not going to get through to them. They'll wag their tongues. And I'm going to say something that I've said for years. You're on the side of Satan when you mock people that tell the truth. Satan is the accuser of the brethren. He's a mocker of truth. Black community will listen to this and say, that white boy don't know what he's talking about. Oh, I do, and more so. I've lived here and gotten to see Exhibit B, the black community, right in front of me every day. Yep, she sure did. Oprah's enjoying her gluttony, her materialism. This is the only heaven that she knows. I hope Maxine Waters enjoys that. Barack and Michelle Obama. They're not saved, folks. And this is the problem of the black community. They make stars, icons, and goddesses and gods out of sports and celeb culture. None of them are going to heaven. Michael Jackson was a Jehovah's Witness, and then he left that, and he was doing all kinds of strange things. LeBron ain't no Christian. Tupac certainly wasn't. Snoop Dogg? Nah. And this is the problem. Watch what happens if Trump wins the election. How much you want to bet there will be riots? Who knows what's going to happen? I'm not sure if he's going to win, though. Democratic Party still trying to get Biden to change his mind, and he's dead set on running again. Talk about a man deluded. Even myself. There comes a point when there's trouble on the bridge, the navigation bridge, and if I was a leader, I'd be saying to my cabinet, I don't know what's going on, but I'm losing it. I feel I need to finish out this term, and I'm not going to run again. That's the mature and the right thing to do. Biden is selfish. He's on an ego trip. Did you all see what's going on in China? China's down there on one of the shoals of the Spratly Islands. That is nowhere near China, and it's even far from the Philippines, but the Philippines claims it belongs to them. China's showed some warships out there, showed a show of force. They're saluting with the fist up, communism, the Chinese. They also seized a Taiwan fishing vessel in the Strait of Taiwan. And the U.S. State Department said that that is a little aggressive. And they're monitoring that situation. China, just in the last week, is doing two big things. Because, and I'm going to say this, because they saw that debate. They see that Joe is powerless. And they know this is the time to flex their muscle. And one thing I want to say to the Black community is that they don't realize something. They're so myopic. They're so focused on their color in this country. They don't realize what's going on in the world. They listen to so much lies from CNN and the left. China and Russia and North Korea are all working together now. And we don't know what's going to happen. But if a country decides to invade and destroy America, I promise you this, the Black community's done, finished. They ain't going to take them in as refugees. No siree. They're not going to do it. Wow, that's pretty bold. Just like when the Beatles said they were more popular than Jesus Christ and things started happening real fast in that group. Herod stood up and the people said he's like a god. And instead of redirecting that, he got arrogant and worms infected his body on the spot and he dropped dead. I'll believe scripture rather than the cult of science. Science used to be science, but it no longer is. The skin of the truth stuffed with a lie. Anything that denies the existence of God is not science. That's a faith-based belief system because it takes more faith to believe in that hoo-ha than it does to believe that God created the earth in 6 literal days and God rested on the 7th. And people want to argue about that all day long. I don't have a struggle with that. There was evening and there was morning. First day. There was evening, there was morning. Second day. And he did that all the way. Seems pretty straightforward to me. But you've taught children in America that there is no God and we're some evidence of primordial slime. And you got a Black culture that's pumping out vain, foul, profane, very godless music. And the preachers aren't saying anything in their churches. Where's the Black preacher to stand up and say, what is this stuff you're listening to? Should be uttering a strong condemnation to Cardi B culture. I don't care if she came from the projects that made $1 million. She's making $1 million on a stumbling block. What does the Bible say? Whoever causes one of these little ones to stumble, better millstone hung around their neck and drowned in the depths of the sea. Cardi B is going to be in big trouble. But she's all about Peppa the Pig, angry that her little daughter is stepping in puddles because she sees that. So Cardi B doesn't put 2 and 2 together in her brain. She sees that Peppa the Pig does have an influence, which is harmless kid stuff, splashing in mud puddles, but she wants to buy designer clothes for a little girl instead of letting her be a kid. But she sees no connection to her music and little girls turning into slut whores. Okay, Cardi B, your credibility just went down the toilet. You can't talk to people like Cardi B. She's inflated with her diva status. You say anything wrong about Black stars? Oh, you're just racist and a hater. No, they're bringing destruction onto the kids, man. Black people talk about Black Lives Matters. My white buns wrong. They don't care about their children when they expose them to that culture. The blacks don't care about their children when they think it's funny when their 3-year-olds twerking on reels and TikTok videos to Cardi B. My wet ass pussy. Really, black culture? Don't talk about us. You use the N word in your music. Got hypocrisy? They need a man who will stand up in the black community and be like a Martin Luther King and say, we're tired of it. Put your boys up here and let's have an honest talk and start backing up your truck. But they won't, because they're a cult. Just like the Democrats, just like the Mormons, just like the JWs. Anytime you tell people, oh, you don't listen to him, he's not black, that's a cult. You don't listen to him, he's not a Mormon, that's a cult. He's not a Jehovah's Witness, don't allow him to teach you. You know what that means? Don't think for thyself. Check your brains in at the door. The African American community, over 75% of it in the U.S., has checked their brains at the door. They let the Democrats think for them. They let the Democrats tell them what to believe. And they're clipping their own wings with rap music, clipping their own wings with their obsession with sports and celeb culture. They're not teaching their kids to defend the faith. They're not teaching black kids to stand up and argue against this false belief called evolution. They're not teaching black kids to stand on the rock of truth. Instead, they're teaching them to put their fist in there and say, Black Lives Matter. Yeah. And the persons that started that are gorging themselves on the money. They should be thrown in prison. Those women. There's a huge lack of integrity in the African American community at large. They're race baiters. They talk about us. They complain. They rack up the highest crime bills. And they want to sit there and act like we're the problem. Augusta culture, the majority of the black people down here are not good. The majority of the black people down here are not good. The majority of the African American population down here is not good. They believe lies. They teach lies to their children. They have an attitude towards us. They can't even raise their own children properly, most of them. This city is full of blight. It's full of black politicians that help themselves to the cookie jar. They're worried about getting in by color, and they don't do anything for the city. They don't do hard change. They don't try to integrate everybody together. We got black and whites that are gridlocked. It's almost like a crime syndicate down here in Augusta. It's disgusting. And you don't see these mayors. We just got a new sheriff elected in charge of the whole sheriff department. We had Roundtree, worthless. Now we got another black guy, probably worthless. They need to rebuke their own cops. Quit speeding around in your cars and not using blinkers, please. Start modeling good driving, please. I got plenty to say about this county down here. You know, you talk about Bo and Luke Duke and Hazard County. This is like Hazard County run by blacks. You got to see the shit they get away with down here. Lots. I hear story after story of a few white people that I know. A lady worked at one of the uniform places down there, and a black lady, she had a trainer, and that black lady was awful. Bad attitude. And the white woman actually is a drop dead gorgeous woman who is humble. She's a very nice lady. And this woman was rude to her, threatened her. And her management said, just keep doing what you're doing. Just keep documenting. See, we have to handle blacks with kid gloves. Document. White person, you're fired. Black person, we got to go for years before we can get them out of there. When did this new legislation come in? 2020, because the Democrats bared their fangs. There's too much discrimination against the blacks. Systemic racism. I'll tell you what's systemic in this country. Lies, dirty lies by the Democrat left. Systemic. And it's a pandemic. They love those words. Why do they use those words? Because they're guilty of all the above. The Democrats are racist as hell. They use the N-word. They support the freedom of speech in black music using the N-word and move out the way, B. Where's the feminist in the Democrat left? Where's the white feminist saying that is degrading to women? Why am I, a white guy, saying that is degrading to women? Where's the policing of that? Homeland Security's fleecing old ladies and 3-year-old kids at a damn airport that are white after 9/11. Homeland Security ain't doing anything about this rap music, which is terrorism to all of us. You got these kids growing up without a conscience, and the Bible talks about having their consciences seared as with a hot iron. Do you know what that means? It means you cauterize your conscience. These kids don't have the feelings you and I have. They will come in and kill you and laugh about it. Kids, black kids. There are neighborhoods, if I were to walk into in the middle of the night, they were out there, they would kill me, laugh about it, and bathe themselves in my blood and celebrate it. This is the kind of shit we got living in this country. Right here, right now. And these black adults want to stand around saying, oh, we got a problem, the systemic white racism. No, we got a problem of black people that are in denial, that won't cowboy up and raise their kids. These black men want to fucky and pump out these kids and walk away. I got coworkers asking to borrow money. I said, what about your 3 ex-husbands? Did you go after them for child support? Well, they don't pay. Where's the law? Why aren't they jailed? I'll tell you who's got more privilege in Augusta, and it's not white males. Boom, that's it. Go look at downtown Augusta. You could tell it was cool once. Black shops, black this, black music, black everything, and it's blight, 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 blight. Abandoned buildings, broken windows, graffiti everywhere. People living in homes with a tarp over the roof. They'll pay for that hoopty out front, but they won't pay to fix their own house. Priorities, man. Drugs flow through this place. The cops will not do anything about people smoking pot on their front porch or downtown because it's so prevalent here. It's against the law in Georgia, but the cops won't do anything. Augusta has one of the stupidest laws I've ever seen. They can make noise till 11 o'clock. They can make as much noise as they want in a residential neighborhood, and no one can do anything. Wait a minute. I'm paying my taxes, and I got to be subject to hood rats? America is a messed up country when they're bowing to the least common denominator in the country. How did we have this happen? Because we had Democrats in power. That's why. You'll never reason with the blacks that support all that crap I've talked about. They'll rigidly defend their crap music. They'll rigidly defend their behavior, their ways, and call me a racist. They don't listen to reason. They can't come back with any facts. They throw out little cuties saying, January 6th. Excuse me, I wasn't part of that. And can I remind you again? Okay, if we were to do a pie chart, you know what that is? Shaped like a pie. And you divvy up things, okay? January 6th on a pie chart would be about that much. Notice my fingers are touching each other. The damage that blacks did in 2020 would take up the entire pie, contrasted to the yahoos and idiots on January 6th. So weak, lame, pointless argument, like comparing apples to coconuts. The two are nowhere near the same. And to the African Americans that like to say whites are racist and stole the land, how many of you are friends with Native American Indians? How many of you gave your house that you worked hard for, signed the title to a Native American so you could give part of their land back? I thought so. Shut up. Your arguments are baseless. But let's talk about another blowhard. Let's talk about another sad little boy in the Black Exhibit B community. Colin Kaepernick said purposefully, had a very affluent career in football, good player. All colors came to watch football games. It's amazing that a football game, all the diversity was there and everybody's getting along cheering for their team. Kaepernick didn't like that. He chose to kneel instead of stand. Chose to be obtuse and make a dramatic scene. Raised by white parents, not blacks. Raised by white parents, not blacks. Remember that. I got a problem with the police departments and this flag. He quit the NFL, and black people say, oh, he got fired because of racism. A black woman got up into my face. 3 people disagree with me. You're going to tell me they're all wrong? Yeah. Go look it up on the internet. He quit. And then he tried to come back, and the NFL said, you can come back, but here's what you need to do. He refused to do the terms that they called for, and it had nothing to do with racism. He was supposed to meet at one of the fields, and he decided to show up at a high school. NFL doesn't use high school fields, Crappernack, and you knew that. You wanted to be black and do completely opposite because you don't submit to authority, because black people are taught over and over again to reject anybody that isn't black. Yes, there is that element in their race. And somebody say, that's not true. I'm not talking about all black people. I'm talking about the ones that got to act up. So Crappernack brought division to football. Many people said, screw this. I'm not watching football no more. Did Crappernack be the man and go to the coach and go to the whoever he goes to in the NFL bosses? I want to take a year sabbatical. I want to go work for the police department and find out what's going on in there. I would have respected him for that. Crappernack didn't do anything. He just grandstand. He doesn't know what the police deal with. He doesn't give a shit. Most black people don't care. But let's interview the woman in Baltimore, an older black woman living in the rough part. Please don't defund the police. They're the only ally I got against my own people. They're drug dealing. They're shooting each other. I'm scared of my own life. Let me tell you, most black women in those places would rather live next door to me than their own black people, because I'm no danger to her. Nero learned that. He told his own black friends, man, you got a white guy bought that house. He'd hold up his leg and said it was black people that did this to me. He ain't going to do that. I'm not afraid of him. I treated him like a neighbor. And he treated me like a neighbor. I'm in my house. Some kids hung out, one a teen and one preteen. And they played basketball on the basketball stand that he had in his yard. And I heard this big bang thump and this noise, and I ran out the house. A big old rock sitting in my front yard tried to bust out the lattice in the front window that I used to have. The girls were standing out of the tree. I said, what is going on out here? And they said, the girls did it. I said, no, they didn't. They did not pick up that big rock and throw it. Those girls have never done anything to my house. And none of them can pick up that big rock. And this one kid started mouthing. I said, you're mouthing off at me. I never did anything to you. And you're throwing stuff at my house, and you busted the lattice. Nero came out. I told him what happened. I said, man, I never even did anything to these guys. I've always been nice. Nero turned around and said, both of you, go home now. And he's telling the truth. He never did nothing to us. He been nice. Why you do that to that man? Throwing rocks. Get out of here, and I'm going to be talking to your mom. A week later, I was driving a bus. We were delivering food when the shutdown happened to students. The school said if we had leftover after doing route, we could take it to people who needed it. My neighbor got 3 kids. One of those kids answered the door. I said, hey, is mom home? I said, I got some food. He saw the bus. And the older kid said, hey, I want to apologize to you for throwing that rock at your house. I thought it was his younger brother who was running his mouth. I shook his hand. I said, thank you. That was big of you to admit that. I forgive you. I said, you see that bus right there? He goes, yes, sir. I said, that's what I do for a living. I'm not a rich white man. When you damage my house, I have to pay for that. I'm not rich, and that costs me money. I don't know what your deal is. I don't know what you're angry about. Could you please not take your anger out on my house? Yes, sir. So maybe we could talk about, you could help me with something. I could pay you a little money. You could earn a little extra money by candy or whatever. Now, years ago, I would have called the police on that situation, but I chose to do it different. I'm glad I did. That kid no more bothered me. I'd be backing into my driveway after, hey, man, how you doing? I hired him to rake the property across the street. It was trouble. Nobody was living there at the time. I said, see all them pine needles, pine cones, and broken beer bottles? I said, I'm going to rake all that up, okay? And you're going to fill the bags. I'm going to give you the bags, and you're going to fill them and put on these gloves, and I don't want you to cut your hands. His brother was going to help, but he was grounded. I was going to pay him each $10. I gave him a $20 bill. He says, man, it feels good to do good. I said, that's what I'm about, man. I said, stop tearing up stuff, man. Go get yourself a job. Go earn some extra money, man. He went back home. He told his family. They never came up and talked to me, but when I go by, they wave. See, they know a white guy ain't causing a problem. I tried to have a teaching moment, and it worked. I haven't seen the kid in a while, but I had no more problem with him. The reason white people don't move into the black neighborhoods is they don't want to deal with all the bullshit. Depreciating real estate values, drug dealing, ghetto behavior, disrespect, loud music. People have a right to peace in their homes, black people. People have a right to peace in their homes, including the older black people that you're walking all over that don't like your genre of music. Where's your respect to them? Please, don't talk about white racism. Don't tell me I'm not black and I can't talk. You damn right I can talk. God gave me a mouth. God gave me eyes to see. I'm going to talk about what I see. Just like you with your little video phones every time the cop acting up. I want to talk about you acting up because it's long overdue. And the white community needs to join in unison, as well as the Asians and the Hispanic that have had their own crap from the black community. We all need to stand up and say, you need to behave and you need to change your ways. But no, we got another black mayor of Baltimore. And is he cleaning up the inner city? Nope. There's only 13% of white people in Baltimore, I heard. And the blacks want them out. Their city's going down the shitter. Be careful, blacks. You might get what you deserve. And when everything implodes around you, guess who you'd be calling to come in and clean it up? This color. But here's something I want to communicate to the black world. I had a student on the bus one day saying, I'm black, I'm white. I said, let me show you something. Hold your arm up against this, okay? I had a black sheet of paper. I said, hold your arm. I said, what color is this? Black. I said, what color is your arm? Black. I said, no, it isn't. What color is this? Black. What color is your arm? Brown. So you're not black, are you? You're brown. I said, okay, now let me do another thing here. I said, let me ask you a question. Show me. Now, it's hard because the light's shining right on me. But which one's white? This. I said, what color is this? White. I said, look at it. There's a lot of pink and red in there, isn't there? I said, I'm not a white guy. I'm Caucasian, but I'm Irish. You're Irish. What does that mean? I said, I'm a race. I'm an ethnicity. I didn't know that. I said, you see, y'all want to say whites as if. And I remember my friend in Ohio telling me a black guy came up to him to run his mouth and start some crap. Whites don't have a culture. Excuse me. We have more culture than this African American does today. Our inventions, the stuff that we designed and built, the engineering, the products, the music. My gosh. People forget there's a lot of white bands out there that are listened to way more than all the black music is around the world. To say we have no culture is just the height of ignorance. The Democrats are responsible for this racial strife, race baiting, They love when riots, they love to videotape that shit and keep it going. That's what the Democratic Party is, divide and conquer. Use the blacks to act up so they can push their twisted agendas through, get the vote. And I see a lot of black women entitled, letting their bodies go to hell, gaining weight, don't shave their underarms, and running their mouth, and then judging me. He's 58, slender, in shape, better looking than they are naked, and they're judging me. It's amazing when somebody's wrong, all their gauges internally are reading wrong readouts. You can't tell them that. I would love to date a black woman. Some of them are cute until they open their mouth about all the bullshit that they believe. When you see their spending, when you see, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to marry a woman who spends $300 on damn hair and buys wigs. How about you do like the 50s? You wash that hair and let it grow naturally. You know, black women look so much cuter with their natural hair. All these waves and wigs, all they've done is generate an attitude where it just says, I am ghetto. I love an African American woman who looks natural with her hair and is not ashamed of it. I love an African American woman that keeps her body clean and smelling good, keeps her personal space clean, doesn't rise up and yell at me. I like African American women that want a man to be their head. Really hard to find those kind today. I bet you back in the 50s, I could have found a sweet African American right here in Augusta to marry and would have been a damn good wife. These women today are out of fucking control. Pardon my French. I'm glad I got this off my chest. That's why I rant. It's therapy. I don't care what the black community in Augusta thinks. They'll have all their little dumb comments to make. I didn't grow up in the Dixie South. Thank God. I grew up in Southern California in LA, and I saw what the blacks did to that. I lived in Minnesota, lived in Ohio, and I saw what the blacks did in all those places. I didn't have a lot of positive experiences with blacks. I didn't grow up to be racist, and they were just throwing hate and racism and bullying to me. We had one black girl in my science class at Prescott High School, Joy. I never even talked to her, and she's making rude comments to me from the back of the class. Like, you're in a town that's 90%, 99%. Well, no, we had a lot of Hispanics and Native Americans, but virtually no blacks. And guess what? You don't have to be a star, baby. They always got to grab the show. They always got to make a mark for themselves. You know, I'm deep in enemy territory. And the last thing I'm going to do is rocket in my truck through a black neighborhood, play the music loud late at night. I'm going to show respect because that's in me anyway. But if I'm in the minority and I'm in unfamiliar territory, you might want to tone it down. But watch this. I got black women calling my house, asking if I will replace their shower wall, if I will change the door locks on their house, if I will fix something in their home, because they've seen my work. And this is what they said. I'm tired of hiring black guys. They charge me money. They don't fix nothing. And they can count on me. So I say I don't feel like I'm making a difference in Augusta, but I am, because I have several people that want to hire me to do their projects and will pay me. Whites, one of the mistakes you made was white flighting. You never should have done that. You should have stood your ground and stayed in your neighborhoods and teach by modeling. But you ran and you created a vacuum, and the blacks flooded in and the bad behavior escalated. White flight was not a good thing on white people's part. And I'm not wild about this culture. I'll be very honest with you. I love to dance. I like to get down, and it's funny that black women love to see a guy get up and dance. They'll come up and dance because they like to see that, and I love that. There's awesome positive things about the blacks. I can tell a black woman, you look good. You do that to a lot of Caucasian women, you're going to end up in the damn principal's office at work or lose your job. I can tell a black woman, man, you look nice today. Thank you, Michael. I love that. Black women, if they stop believing the lies, the ones that take care of themselves, they know how to cook. They know how to love their men. But you got these ratchet ghetto ones that let all the bad hang out, and it's like, no tanks. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Freedom. The truth will set you free. The truth sets me free to speak. We need to stop living in fear. We're telling the truth, even if it offends somebody. Stop being afraid. America wasn't won by people that were afraid. It was won by people that stood up. Paul Revere said the British are coming. The Bostonians threw the tea off the ship. Sometimes even in a place like this, I need to speak up, even though I'm dominantly under a 53 percentile of blacks. Whether they're listening or not, somebody will. You think about a little seed that can grow an oak tree so big that was in danger of my house and the neighbors and growing into the sewer out here, sucking all that nice sewage water and growing, but then it had rot the trunk, rot the limbs. And every time it rained, pieces were falling off the tree. And I thought, I got to get that. I've done all this work on my house. One of those limbs falls, I'll go right through the roof, right through the ceiling, and crush everything. Cost me a fortune to get that oak tree out of here. But you think about that little seed, that little fragile seed can grow into that. That's what I have to look at. What I'm talking about here, I feel like I am powerless, but it's the seed of truth. Hopefully it'll take on some good ground. Hopefully some African Americans can listen and say, you know what? At first I was getting mad, but he's right. He's right. We need to change. We need to change our culture from within. There's my rant for the 4th of July. Enjoy, everybody.